Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 177. This is Carl.
This is Austin.
And this is Justin.
So that Austin voice you just heard is a different Austin than our other Austin.
They're multiplying.
You're original Austin.
I'm original Austin. I am
OG.
the Asian Austin, not to be confused with the Caucasian Austin.
So you can say that, but I can't say that.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
We just call you original Austin, and we call the other Austin Austin Henry after his son's name. So we'll go with that. Ooh, boy. All right.
We're off to a rough start.
Rough start.
HR.
Yes, the what do you think the HR department in the Imperium is? It's Inquisition, of course. They just go, I hear you're harassing this person. Boom.
Yeah, they just hate everybody equally.
Bolt pistol to the head.
Okay, Austin, let's talk a little bit about you. Now, we've brought you on because you have a fairly large Space Wolf army. You play locally. You played against Justin just fairly recently in a Space Wolf versus Dark Eldar game. We kind of talked about that last episode and a little bit this episode as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the hobby?
Oh man, I got into the hobby like way back in like the 80s. Rogue Trader.
Like Rogue Trader days.
Rogue
Boom.
Trader.
Boom. Bring it in. Fist bump for radio.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I loved wargaming back then. I played D&D, and then I got into like wargaming with like miniature tanks.
So,
and, like,
so you started wargaming with Games Workshop, or was it like Hero Quest or Battle Masters? Or...
No. It was Adeptus Titanicus, and then Epic 40K is what got me into it.
So rad. Those were your first games. That's cool.
Yeah, they did great boxing, and then like Space Hulk.
Yep.
Oh my God, that was such a great game.
Yep.
Like, just take up your whole dining table, just lay down tiles and spawn points everywhere. It was just fantastic.
Sweet.
And so you stopped playing for a while when you went in the military.
Yeah. When I joined the military, I got out of the hobby. It was probably a 7-year break, but then once I got out of the military again, GW opened up
not a lot of playing 40K on submarines.
Not a whole lot of space for a 6x4 table on a submarine now.
Man, if only Kill Team had been out back then, you know.
Clear this bunk.
Oh man, you have to clear out the guy that's hot racking with you first.
Yeah.
I don't even want to know what hot racking is. Moving along.
Look it up. Maybe
know.
you shouldn't.
We'll ask Blake and Ed from Life After the Cover say what
no.
hot racking is. So then you got out of the military. You started playing again.
Yeah, I mean, I was still like interested in 40K even when I was in the military. Just you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know. But then
you still kind of kept up on it.
I kind of kept up with it a little bit, and then GW opened up the Oak Ridge store.
I see.
Down in San Jose,
that
pulled me right back in. And like, I just been playing since then. I don't play that much. I'm more of a hobbyist, and I like to collect and build and paint, and then occasionally I didn't have a good group to play with, so like I'm just so happy that I'm part of this community here locally. Cool guys to play, and they're on the same page as me. Not hyper competitive, but we have spirited games.
Sure. Well, awesome. Well, look, I'm super glad you joined us. I can't believe we haven't had you on before.
I was surprised by that too.
Shocked we hadn't had you on for like a Warrior Lodge or something, but. Now you're part of the retinue. So now you're part of the pack.
Now he's part of the Wolf Guard. Yeah.
You're part of the pack.
Part of the pack.
We'll see if you make Wolf Guard.
Oh man, I was a lone wolf for so long. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can reintegrate.
Okay. So obviously this episode, this is our show of force on the executioners of the Emperor. Or rather, the Emperor's executioners. They're not killing the Emperor.
The noble executioners, I like to call them.
These are the Space Wolves that we're going to be talking about. And I know a lot of people have waited a long time for this. I'm sure we're going to leave something out that somebody's going to pick on, but that's one of the great things about these episodes is everybody can give us their feedback. The best place to do that is on our Facebook group.
Yes, it is.
After the show. There's a lot. I was really actually pleasantly surprised at episode 176, the Pillars of the Hobby episode.
I got to admit, I was too. Yeah.
How many people engaged in conversation?
Oh, yeah, no, it was
that?
definitely
that one
great.
struck a chord, I think.
Yeah. And it was just, an idea that I kind of came up with based off something somebody said in the Facebook group. So,
hopefully this one strikes a chord as well, and everybody starts collecting some Space Wolves. And we hear about them crushing some tourneys.
There you go.
Oh.
Justin, you have a pretty exciting announcement that you want to make.
Yeah, I'm still a little in shock and awe. So I received a phone call from Caleb from CK Studios a few days ago, And
by the way, you'll hear their brand new advertisement on this episode towards the end of the episode.
That's right. And for some reason, they feel I'm fit to help CK Studios expand. So I will be joining the team as of now. And
what does that mean? They're not commission painters.
No. So what that means basically is that CK Studios is blowing up, and rightfully so, because
they're incredible.
What they do is teach you the best, in my eyes, the best tool that you can ever truly embrace, which is the airbrush. For those of you that aren't airbrushing, in my eyes, like,
you should be.
What are you doing? Like,
it's not a scary thing. I mean,
it's daunting. It
is a little daunting at first, and there is a little bit of monetary commitment to it, but it really ramps up your rate. It ramps up the quality of your paint.
Once you get past like, oh, I'm afraid of this, and you actually start using it, you're like, oh, this is not that hard to use. And then they're going to teach you.
There's just so much resources out there.
How you can use it to its best effect, right?
Absolutely. So I'll be teaching 101 classes moving forward.
Nice.
Probably starting out maybe one every other month.
Very cool.
As business dictates, but. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm humbled.
Yeah.
But
I think this is interesting for you because you've clearly, both of you guys actually are very good airbrushers, and you clearly going through the courses 101, 102, 103. Like I've seen your skill ramp up tremendously over that time. But now you have to teach that skill.
Right.
And knowing how to do something and then teaching it something else. But you kind of come at it also from a direction. If you worked for Games Workshop before, you've taught people how to paint. So I think you can, use
there's
some
a
of those
system,
skills
right?
as well.
GW has a system on
that's
how
all
they
it
want
really
to teach
is.
you paint.
Yeah, that's all it really is. And I mean, obviously Caleb is definitely still the master, and I'm not trying to like.
And they're really good at teaching.
Yeah,
like that's the point that I'm trying.
Yeah,
to
it totally hit me out of left field, and I'm excited. I'm super excited, and really honored to be joining the team.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm super excited for you. I think that this is a great opportunity for you. And later in the episode, I don't know if it was in the episode or in the break where you were talking about, I'm waiting for this, and you said I'm waiting for the Horus demon model,
right?
And then I'm gonna really throw myself into paint.
Into competition.
I think next year, you've talked a number of times about, I want to paint a model to the best of my ability. I think next year should be the year that you do that. I think
agree.
you should pick a model, and I think now with all the skills that you've learned, you should just like totally embrace that and just go all out and see what you can do.
Yep, it's time.
I would love to see what you're capable of.
It's time, and the 103 class really it got me inspired seeing Sam's work, with the freehand and just looking at his work in general. It was like, dude, I know I can aspire to that, like if not get
it's
there.
attainable,
I think
right?
it's
I
attainable.
feel like it's attainable.
Like
right?
I feel like my skill sets are there. I just need to pull the trigger and be okay with looking at the same model for like 3 months.
Yep.
I don't know if I can do that. I have a really hard time doing that.
But if anything, like it's something that like we always talk about new experiences and trying new ways to play. Yep. Like this is a new way to hobby, right? Like I think I have the army painting down.
This is more the
definitely.
This is more the artist direction.
This is literally I think where it goes from like nuts and bolts, just getting an army ready for the board, to like art. Yeah. It literally jumps to that art level. Agreed. I mean, you see some of Sam's pieces, and it's like, dude, that is art.
Definitely not me.
When he's got like the backdrop, this plague demon killing things, and the backdrop has a literal like Franzetta type painting in the background. That is art, And I think it's where my path is leading.
Caleb did that Chaos Reaver Titan standing over there.
That's a piece of
artwork. Like nobody will have a duplicate of that ever.
And that's where like that extra, like the freehand, like if you guys can't, if you're at that state where you're comfortable with your abilities, like take the 103 class and really learn that freehand and the next levels.
Look, so now do you have to take the 102 class or like the 101 class before you can take the 103 class?
Not unless you're Bill from from down south,
or John's wife.
Yeah,
no, she's taken all three, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah,
I would. I think it depends on where your skill set is at. You know, like
that makes sense.
If you're really confident with like, because the 101 goes into like breaking down your brush, like troubleshooting it, how to thin your paints, which is what like really is
a lot of people have problems with there. Yeah, and there was definitely a steep learning curve for me when I got into airbrushing. Is like, really learning how to thin down your paints and then to work the air pressure.
Yep. All those, it's all the fundamentals, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I think the 103 is definitely best for people that have built up those skill sets of the intermediate, but some people just like to jump in the deep end, and if you're one of those guys, just go for it, I guess.
Well, listen, if you want to take a CK class, a CK Studios class, you can check their site. There's information in not only they're a sponsor of the show now, so there'll be a link to their site in the show notes, but there's their commercial at the end of the episode that you'll be able to hear where to go. But here's the other thing I'd add. If one is not in your area, you can reach out to them and you can work with them to gather people for a class. They need 15 people in the States to set up a class.
That's right.
So that's highly doable in many places. Don't sit there and wait for the hobby to come to you. Go out and organize the hobby and get it going.
And most definitely. I think
get airbrushing
didn't
people.
You help set up? Who set up the one in
at Game Castle?
So the one they did at Game Castle, I helped them get going, got the word out, and And
that class filled up.
Yeah, they've done okay with mentions on this show.
Yeah.
So I think, honestly, and we're happy to take them as a sponsor. They're their personal friends, and I think, honestly, anything we can do to help them grow, we're happy to do because they're wonderful people.
Oh, no, they're great guys.
They're helping the hobby all over the place, and so we're happy to help them out. So
and also hashtag Harder and Steinbeck brushes. Do yourself a favor and.
But wait, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Buy one yet.
That's right. That's right.
Don't buy one yet.
Do some research on them, but be a little patient before you
wait about a month. We'll have some more information for you very, very soon. So okay. With that, I think we should just kick the show off and get going.
Let's do this.
All right.
Let's go.
Ooh. Wargamma.com, where you can get resin terrain, craters, lakes, lava pools, and objectives, figure bases for all types of models, character models including Battle Wolf war mounts and spawn seeds, linked barricades. Choose from one of 6 designs to suit the origins of your army, from Star Pharaoh, Spawn Hive, Mechanoid, Dark Ancients, Dredelian Noble, and Chromag Scrapyard. Linked barricade sets include 12 large shields, which are 2 inches wide and 4 connecting walls. Cover nearly a 30-inch line. Sets also include a matching multi-gun turret. Wargamma.com. Alternative battle miniatures. All right, so as usual, we'll kick it off with a little bit of hobby progress. And since I have achieved the least in a big old way, I will go first. So for myself, I listened to Lords of Silence. I know you did too.
I'm halfway through it.
Oh, you
and then squirrel.
Oh, I thought you would have finished it by now because you started.
So normally I listen to audiobooks when I hobby.
Yeah.
But lately, for whatever reason, I've been like on this music kick, and it's just been kind of helping me.
Okay.
Ebb and flow through my progress.
While you're hobbying.
While I'm hobbying, yeah. So I just need to stop getting distracted and finish it. But what did you think? Did you?
I think it is a good book. First off, Chris Raitt is probably one of my favorite Black Library authors. There's like 4 or 5 of them that I'm like, these guys are one of my favorite authors.
Sure.
Aaron, Dan, Chris, Guy Haley, and John are probably my favorites. Graham can be really good, but for me, he can be hit or miss sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
And usually it's just the content. And same with Guy. Or not Guy. Whoever.
Too many.
Anyway,
Too many.
yeah.
Too many.
There's too many to keep track of. So Chris is, I think, very strong as a writer. The Death Guard is an interesting topic because it's like getting into the head of something that's very, very alien.
And very rotten.
And
decrepit.
So one of the questions I've had for Aaron from time to time is, how are you going to write Death Guard into the Black Legion? Because it like supports like all 4. The Black Legion, like how do they even work or operate?
They haven't really touched on that.
It hasn't
at all yet, huh?
And so when I read Lords of Silence, I was like, oh, this is interesting. There's a point where they kind of ally with another Chaos Marine force, and how their interaction was kind of interesting. But getting into their insight and what they're thinking was, I think, well done.
Right.
And he does a good job of it because he also introduces that human character. That goes through some issues there too. I don't want to give any spoilers. And that allows you to get another perspective that helps understand what they're going through. So overall, I mean, I think it was well done.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. You know, I love the depth they give when they're just walking through fire, you know, just a horde of fire and just bouncing off of them. And then, getting, like you said, into their head a little and just seeing how detached and aloof they are.
Yeah.
You know, as the
and why?
centuries
and
have.
The detachment is the big piece that came across in there. How they become corrupt, and at first they're like, "Oh, this is horrible," but then they stop caring. And I just thought it was fascinating.
Absolutely.
So I finished that. I sold my Ultramarines army.
Yes, you did.
And
sad.
It is, but it isn't. I sold it to other Austin, Austin Henry, who, interestingly enough, he wanted to buy it. And this is a really cool story.
It is.
And I'm probably stealing some of his thunder from when we get him back on. But, he wanted to buy the army. I give him a little bit of a deal because he's a friend locally, and we're pretty close. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll sell it for this much, which is just a little bit less of what I was asking. Not tremendously, but he went to his wife, Renee, and said, I want to buy the army. And she was like, well, I'm not really working right. She's doing contract work. I'm not really working right now. If I was
It's one of those things you want to run by your wife.
Yeah.
It's
a big purchase.
Definitely need the spousal support for these kind of things.
Yeah. And so she kind of came back and said, well, no, probably now is not the right time for us to kind of spend this money. He was like, all right. So he came back to me and said, well, I can't buy it. We talked about it and here's the situation. And maybe if things change. I said, well, listen, it's going to sit there. And if you decide later you want to buy it, and if nobody's bought it, it's yours. And so he said, okay. And then I get this private message from his wife who says,
cool.
I want to buy it for him, but I don't want him to know.
So sneaky.
So, I don't want to send you like a PayPal right now because he'll see that. So we worked out, okay, how we'll handle it. And he came over here yesterday when Kat and Caleb and you were over here, Justin. And she came with him. Because she and my wife get along, and so they were hanging out, and I had it all set out on the table, and he showed up, and I was like, "Yeah, I got to pack all this up for the guy who bought it, or for the person who bought it."
Did you ask him if he minded delivering it to said person?
Well, I'll get to that. I was like, and so I started packing it up in like KR cases and stuff. I was like, well, I'm just going to loan these KR cases to the person so I could transport it to him, and then he's like, oh, okay, and Caleb kept saying you should make him help you pack it, and I'm like, I don't think I can do that, like without seeming too rude. And then finally, as I had it all packed up and we were kind of going through the day, I said, you know what? The person who bought it lives really close to you. Would you mind taking it to them?
And he's kind of salt in the wounds.
He was
right
looking
there.
at me like, you ass.
Are you for real?
Like, are you kidding me? And I go, he lives. I go, they live literally in your apartment like that. And I could see he was like, what? And then I said,
the gears are turning up here.
I said, because Renee bought it for you. And he was like, no. Like, he was so excited. I'm
so bummed you didn't get that on tape, dude. That would have been, but
yeah.
You know what? I'm very excited in the sense that somebody in our group bought it.
Yeah.
So now, like, they're still using it here. He was very passionate about it, and that makes it easier to unload on somebody who's like, when I sold my corn stuff, I sold it to somebody who was just so excited about it and so passionate.
It makes it easier to let go.
Yeah, that I'm like, great, because I don't really have that passion for it right now. I'm much more interested in some other things. I'm glad you are,
cool.
And you're here, and we get to play with it still, and so
yeah, it's not going very far from home.
But what a cool thing for his wife to do.
Yeah, I had to tell my wife that story, just as like a little, just in
hint.
case you ever get any ideas,
Yeah,
because I need more models.
Totally.
Other than that, all I've done is assemble a Primaris Dreadnought, and
nice.
You came over with Caleb, and you were kind of playing around with some of the Dragonforge bases.
Yep.
And kind of inadvertently stumbled into a way of painting them that I think it's going to work perfectly for
awesome.
what we were trying to do.
Yeah, be fast.
Between you and good. Caleb, I think we've got something that'll go really fast.
And then also we talked about kind of hitting your Minotaurs with some artist inks.
With some inks. So I just bought those. Austin here and I were talking about those Daleroni.
Daleroni.
I call them Dalerownies. I think it's Daler-round.
Yeah.
Who cares? Yeah.
Well, we know what we're talking about.
We'll put a link up
here.
to the name of them, but I was like, oh, I'll just buy some on Amazon. The ones I wanted, like Burnt Umber and the Sepia, like $20 a bottle.
No way.
Yeah, I'm like, no. And then I
think you might have been getting a bigger.
Nope, 6 ounce. And then I went to Dick Blick online, and they're there for $13 a bottle. So I just bought them.
Jeez, I remember them being like $8 or $9.
Yeah, they are
big
big
box stores.
Yeah,
some are.
Some are like $8-9.
The less popular colors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you get Payne's Gray?
I did not.
That color.
I got purple
on your metallics.
Well, I got the purple because you guys were saying the purple would work well.
And the umber
and stuff.
And sienna.
The umber and the sienna. Those are the three I ordered.
Nice. Did you have to get Payne's Gray?
Well, I'll borrow yours and see how it works.
Okay, sounds good. I think I brought.
You have like 3 bottles.
I bought like 3 of them. Yeah, one.
I don't understand that color. So like,
it's basically a blue black. So like.
Oh, interesting.
So what you can do is like.
I would not have guessed that based on the title of the color.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
dude, it's hard to explain how amazing this color is. Like if you shoot it either as like an initial layer under metallics that you can dry brush over.
Okay.
So like you start with a black, right? Black primer, of course. And then you start out with Payne's Gray first.
Okay.
You just coat that black in Payne's Gray, and it gives it like that really. It's really hard to explain the color saturation that it gives you as the base point.
Okay.
And then when you dry brush over it, it just adds that little hint of blue. You know, like real guns have that
I know
little.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It just adds that little hint of blue, and then you can go back in and
that would be
respray
fantastic
it.
for like something like Gray Knights.
Yeah.
In particular, that would work really well.
Dan's been rocking a bunch of Necron kill team models lately.
It would work really well.
And he's using that CK method of like really shooting the spot colors like purples and greens and those artist inks in there just to add interest.
Right.
To
You're just
it,
trying to give the model a little bit more depth.
Exactly.
You know, something for the eye to look at and see.
And I think that's what Caleb was talking about with the umber and such on the Minotaurs. Hitting it in certain areas will offer some great shading and
Absolutely.
stuff. So I'm gonna do that as soon as they arrive. I'm gonna start shooting.
And it's one of those things too. Like it doesn't take much time.
No.
You know, it's like you sit there and work on 10 guys, and you're getting all that definition, all that volume in there with like maybe another 10 minutes of work.
The big kicker for me was the vehicles and seeing how he had done it on Minotaur vehicles, and I was like, oh, I get it. So super easy.
Probably better that you start those techniques or try them out on a Rhino or a bigger model to kind of conceptualize it and then go to the smaller ones.
For sure.
You have enough models that you could test.
I don't know if I have any Rhino.
Or just models in general to test on.
Jeez. All right. So that was me. Austin, what have you been working on?
I've just been super excited about Adeptus Titanicus, and so I've been working on, getting the tokens painted, painting up the buildings, and I finished up painting my buildings, and now I'm starting to work on some Warhound Scout Titans and building them and magnetizing them, and I'm just like.
Have you actually played it yet, or are you just getting?
We were talking about that.
I actually have not played a single game yet because. I don't know. I'm just a snob, I guess. I don't want to play with unpainted models.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I have that same problem.
And so I'm like, I got to get these guys painted. And so I've just been assembling and,
Also, a lot of the painting of them, especially the Warlord, is like, you can't even really, unless you're playing just with the exoskeleton, you can't really play with it unpainted because you're going to want to paint those panels
just like an Imperial Knight or any other Titan.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So,
what colors are you going for on them?
So I'm very split right now as far as what Legio I'm going to go for. It's either going to be Astorum, the Warp Runners, or Gryphonicus.
Okay. Gryphonicus has yellows in it, right?
It's the gray and yellow one.
Gray and yellow, right.
And Forge World just came out with the news how they're having colored decal sheets for them.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh,
nice.
Maybe I do want to do Gryphonicus again. Because I was at Gryphonicus and I was like, no, I'm going to do Warp Runners. I got some stencils for the flame motifs,
Nice.
and I've got the stencils all out, and I was ready to go all Astorum, and then Forge will drop that news. I'm like, ooh, maybe I want to rethink this. So I haven't really gotten anywhere as far as throwing down paint.
One of my problems is like I don't even know if I like the game yet.
Yeah,
and so
you won't know until you try it, right?
But I'm hesitant to like invest like a ton of time into this, and then
just
be
start
like,
with
"Oh,
the
I
basic
don't like
set, get it painted up,
Yep,
and
that's Aaron in my plan right now. So
let me know when you guys play. I really want to.
I'm very curious about
take a peek.
Yeah. So
Because my interest in it at the moment is not, maybe if they had Chaos Legions or it was more epic style with like Eldar and the armies that I love, I'd be more interested. But still a cool idea, a very cool idea.
So Titanic is what got me into the hobby originally.
The original Titanicus box,
Titanicus with the clamshell,
like late
back.
80s.
Yeah, and that's what brought me into the hobby.
Right on, man.
So I've got a real big soft spot for
very cool
for Titans.
Very cool.
Sweet.
The paint job you have done on the terrain.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
Those guys looks really,
I saw
really
that.
good.
Yeah. All airbrushed for the most part.
Mostly airbrushed, and I tried some new techniques. Talking to Colin, he was talking about with his oil washes and whatnot. So I tried doing the gloss coat and then applying the washes that way, and it looks pretty good, I think. And talking with them helped me decide on the colors.
Nice.
A lot of people are going with the gray buildings, very standard gray building. You see a lot of gray buildings out there right now, and so we went with the desert, more of a desert
like a khaki,
cream khaki theme.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think it turned out pretty good.
I'm still real torn on the whole oil pin washing thing. I'm like, I could just get out some mixing medium and some artist inks or whatever, and I don't got to worry about gloss varnishing it, and I just got to play with it more, I guess. I guess the idea being that you can rub it off is like
Doug loves it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of work.
It was just something new for me to try, and it's a terrain piece, and if it looks dirty, then it's a building.
Exactly.
So how did it work out for you?
It worked okay. I did notice the inks do flow a little bit easier into the recesses, and then you can just go back through if you make a mistake and you're a little sloppy. You can just go back there,
rub it off,
and just rub it right off.
Yep.
So help with that. But once again, it's terrains. You can be a little sloppy with terrain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. All right, Justin. Let's hear about all this shenanigans you've been up to.
Oh my gosh! So Caleb and Kat came and visited the Astronomicon.
Yep,
that was a lot of fun. Always good to see them. And gifted me. I was not expecting this. They gifted me with 2 Harder and Steinbeck airbrushes, which is a German company, and these things are amazing. I was able to kind of play around with those for a bit on the bases you mentioned previously, and obviously a learning curve. Anytime you start,
how's the feel on the trigger there? Because
actually, the trigger is really nice.
It looks like a really neat airbrush and
buttery.
I do want to try my hand at it.
You're intrigued, yeah? No, they're just.
And just even where your finger sits on the trigger, it's a different feel.
It is.
It's really cool, actually.
Is it kind of like? Do you have that high roller on your airbrushes, your Badger airbrushes?
I don't know. I just have the bog standard.
Okay.
Basic stuff. But no, the trigger feels amazing. You do have to shoot, which took me getting used to at higher PSI than Badger for whatever reason, just the way the paint flows through them. Like I was shooting at like 30, 35 PSI, which is way higher than I normally do. So that took getting used to. But these things they're sweet. So pigtailed off that, later that night I went home and I started working on my Creature Caster Plague Angel.
Yeah, you had said you were going to do that.
Yeah, I got some pictures I can show you guys. And I just sat there for a couple hours and
with your new airbrush? With
the new airbrush, yeah. So I'm using the Infinity right now.
Yeah.
Just because I want to just kind of master one brush at a time. And man, it's a lot smoother.
Interesting.
And especially when I was using like my concoction, so to speak, like my flow improver and because over here I didn't really have the stuff I normally use.
Right.
So when I was in like my own habitat, it was just like, oh, game on. Just smooth, man. It's
very
really
cool.
smooth. So really fun. Really excited about that. And I've just been on this Nurgle kick. Oh my God. I mean, the last month has just been all Nurgle for me. I should be working on my Deepkin. I'm not, and I don't care.
That's fine. I think you should
That's
work
all right.
on
Hobby Scroll is strong.
But I think you should work on what inspires you at that moment. Right?
I've just been having so much fun.
You have nothing.
It just keeps things flowing,
Right.
When you're like that, when you're in a groove, you just need to kind of you need to ride that wave.
Right. I mean, I'm sitting there with like this piece of wood that's like maybe like 1.5 feet by 2 feet, and it's just full of miniatures that I basically painted over the last month. I'm working on 30 plague bearers right now. Got those pretty much tabletop. I was sitting there. It was funny. I was sitting there with my one of my other little gaming Facebook groups, and we were messaging each other back and forth. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can bang out these 30 plague bearers, get them tabletop tonight. and it was like 10 minutes later, first coat down. 10 minutes later, second coat down, and I just kind of sending them pictures. And
was this all with the harder Steinbeck?
This was previously. This was prior, yeah. So this is with my Chrome, which is kind of my workhorse. But yeah, and so basically 30 Plague Bearers tabletop. I got 10 Blightlord Terminators tabletop, Foul Blightspawn tabletop. And when I say tabletop, like they've all been hit with like tons of airbrushing, like they're base coated.
Right.
I still need to go back and do like my sponge weathering and some of the other things, but they're totally. I mean, you saw them when we played.
Yeah. They looked great when we played.
Totally ready to go. I got a feeded Blight Drone tabletop, which that reminds me, I got to grab.
Oh yeah, I have 2 for you.
I got to grab those. Thank you.
That's right.
What else did I do?
Stole a rule book from me.
I stole a rule book from Carl, which I still haven't brought back.
Is that considered hobby progress?
Reversed hobby progress.
Yeah,
for one.
I had to go buy another rule book.
Which one? Like, the Death Guard one?
No,
the actual main
rule book.
Oh, okay. I went and bought another one because nobody would own up to having it. And then right after I buy it, Justin's like, "Oh, here," and he sends me a picture, and he's got the rule book with my name and written on the edge of it. I'm like, "Oh, dang it."
My bad.
No, well,
I will give it back to you, I promise.
Yeah. I should go write my name on all my stuff right now.
Okay, and so here's another cool thing I came up on. So I got a text message from a guy at work who had a friend who was getting out of the hobby, apparently. He's just kind of over 40K. Right. And he sent me pictures of this massive, like 2 foot by 2 foot Warhammer 40K ruined building that he customized out, custom plastic hard, like Eye of the Inquisition on the front.
It's built with some of the Cities of Death terrain, but then plastic hard and wires added to it.
Built up on like a maybe 2-inch kind of foam base with foam core steps going up to it, and like this thing literally probably took somebody like 2 or 3 days of good solid work to build. I mean, there's like broken, busted cabling on it, just everything you could think of that makes a ruined building
unpainted, right?
Unpainted. So I got
so all sorts of like little things, little treasures to find on
there's
the
like
actual piece.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah,
like on the back side of it, there's like little command stations, like little computers and stuff, and bolt guns bolted onto the wall, and just every place you look at, there's detail. Big blown out crater in the middle.
Yeah.
So shout out to Dave and Pete, man, that was really cool. And then they gave me like another ruined building to the same level, not as big, but the same quality.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of other City Fight ruins. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just got to hit it with some Osh primer and some airbrushing and I want to pour some resin into the crater because there's like busted sewage pipes.
Make wet.
Make like brown, green, gunky, So yeah, a lot of terrain. I definitely want to get that going. But the hobby juices have been flowing on the Kiefer front.
You've gotten a ton of stuff done. My plan now that the Ultramarines are out of the way is just focus on those bases. We have that,
nice.
and then finalize kind of what my recipe is for painting Minotaurs. Now that I'm going to experiment with those inks and stuff.
Dude, let me know if you need any help too. I'm more than happy to come by.
I think I will need help with the inks. Like I just want to see.
We can sit there and experiment on one.
Yeah. To get them to the state where I currently have them takes no time at all.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And then, I've got 300 odd bases to do. But I think with the techniques that we were playing with,
it'd be quick, man.
Yeah, it's a day's worth of work,
I don't even think that. Probably, if both of you and I are tackling it.
Oh, that's a few hours.
2-3 hours.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, but now getting them off and onto the new bases.
Well, that's a whole other piece. But actually, the funny thing was we set the base down and the colors kind of match that winter Cobbletown matte from Table War really, really well. So
I still gotta buy that thing.
I have a lot of Minotaur stuff ahead of me, but that's going to really be my chapter I'm going to kind of embrace. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to play them as. Right now they don't have their own rules. So
you have enough models. It might be fun to kind of do something that's like outside the realm of what you normally do. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just with that initial.
I think I'm going to play them as Ultramarines.
You could maybe play them as Space Wolves.
I was looking at playing them as Iron Hands. So.
You could model some Space Marines riding Minotaurs and use them as Thunderwolf
there
cavalry.
You go.
No, they could be holding them by the horns. I'll stop. Piggyback rides. He wonders why he has me on the show.
You
on
can
the
leave
daily.
now. Justin, you're gonna do.
So I want to get that 2 foot by 2 foot amazing ruin piece like ready to go because it will be the centerpiece of my board.
Yeah.
And I'll bring it over here too. We can get a game on old cobblestone with it.
Yeah.
So I want to get that done. Nurgle, for sure. And then with regards to Nurgle, I'm basically kind of working my army into 2 battalions. I want to do a battalion of Death Guard, which I already have in fold, and then a battalion of demons.
Right.
So basically, to get the battalion of demons ready, I have a Poxbringer. I got to paint up real quick. He's already assembled. And that Plague Angel, that's my 2 HQs, and then I have the 30 Plague Bearers, and I need to buy another box of Nurglings. So basically 30 Plague Bearers and then 2 units of 3 Nurglings because they're just annoying and awesome. And then I'll have my Nurgle battalion. So pretty much getting the battalion up and running because, command points are a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, speaking of which, I was telling you I had pulled out to kind of focus myself on getting some progress on the Minotaurs. I was trying to build a force that I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull out these guys. I'm going to repaint this. I'm going to do this so that I'm at least building towards something. Otherwise, it's just
intimidating.
Yeah, you need to take it in little chunks and bites versus looking at some huge project and you just get overwhelmed.
Right. And one of the interesting things is there's a name dreadnought for the Minotaurs. So I'm like, he's got to be in here.
Yeah.
Right. And as I was kind of going through the Space Marine Codex, like one thing I'd never really looked at for 2 power level. You can take
the Honor Guard?
Honor Guard. You get 2 Honor Guard guys. They have 2+ save. They have power axes.
Yeah, so he just gets an extra few wounds out of it.
Yeah, and they can run, as long as they're within a few inches of him, because he's a character, they can basically be a blade of wounds for him. So as I run him forward,
Plus you could throw a Tech Marine behind him.
Yeah, that's true.
So when they get taken out.
That's true. So I'm kind of going to experiment with a couple things. I got a few ideas there.
Right on.
What about you, Austin? What are you working on coming up?
AT, Titanicus. I'm going to try and get the bases built because you can't just go straight plain bases. You need to build them up, do ruins, craters, maybe throw on some old epic Marines on the bases just to spruce them up and make them look cool.
I'm sure there's some companies out there too that make some pretty sweet scale terrain, little bits, like
sand. Not yet, there will be.
I'm sure there will be 3D printing out there.
I feel like something like that
all sorts of really
came
cool
through my
stuff
Facebook feed of a similar scale. So I'm sure stuff's.
I used to have a epic box set, and I gave it away. I sold it actually. Otherwise, I'd be
that stuff is solid gold right now. Yeah. I mean, it is solid gold. Trying to find that stuff, and people just gouging you.
I've seen some people model and holding the tanks. Done some pretty cool.
I've got some old stuff, but I wish I had the buildings, the ruined buildings, and that stuff is just worth so.
It's crazy.
It's just crazy prices right now out there. So I'm just
it'll settle down, or people will come.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
How does what's that one Drop Fleet Commander? How does that scale?
We were talking about. We were
talking about it before you showed up. I've seen photos of the Drop Zone Commander and the buildings. They're really big buildings,
right?
And so
which could be cool.
Which is really good for line of sight blocking. Mm-hmm. You can set up avenues of fire, and you can mix it up, right? Throw in the Drop Zone Commander and then the plastic buildings, modular buildings.
Huh, might be cool.
Yeah. Games played. So I've only played one game, and it was against you, Justin.
Right.
We played 75 power level.
Open War.
What were your thoughts? Because last time you weren't too thrilled with Open War.
Well, it's funny because both my Open War opponents are here before me.
Oh, that's true. That's true. He wasn't too happy with Open War.
He was not too happy.
I mean, it wasn't like we had a horrible game or anything. It was just I had a really shooty army.
Well,
and
for one, you had to play Austin.
Well, yeah. There's always that hurdle.
I did not bring my Tau.
No, that's the only thing that keeps you in the group.
Oh, thank you.
I'm kidding.
But my Tau
army.
My Tau look fantastic.
They do.
They absolutely do. They look great on that shelf.
Which is actually where they have been.
Your Space Wolves look fantastic too. So
they do. No, I mean our game was. It was a fun game. It was grindy. It was bloody. There wasn't much. In my opinion, it was just kind of we were turn one into each other and rolling dice. There wasn't really much like maneuvering or anything. So it's not like it was an absolutely horrible game at all. It was just.
But for Dark Eldar, maneuvering is a huge part of that army.
And when your whole army is -1 to hit, or can only shoot things that are a foot away, that changes things a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I felt like the deployment and the objectives, those were all great. We probably should have redrew the twist. Because the twist is what really just completely hampered you.
Was it the twist was the shooting one?
The twist was the limiting the shooting to 12 inches.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I was game, though, because I was like, dude, I think I had 6 Talos? No, I only had 3 Talos in that game.
3 Talos.
Should have brought 6. That would have been fun. But yeah, I mean, it was still a very close game. I think you ended up pulling it out, but it was just bloody. We both had lost a ton of stuff by the end.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just completely just mulched all my on-foot power armor guys, and then I was relying on basically my Thunderwolves and my tanks at that point.
So your game and my game, Justin, you played Death Guard, I played Thousand Suns. We deployed effectively long ways on the table. There was like a...
Well, even before that, we actually got inside of each other's minds and made the same army list. Just I made the Nurgle version and you made the Tzeentch version.
It was kind of crazy. Our lists were very, very similar in a number of ways.
It was like Demon Prince, Hellbrute. You had 2 Preds. I had 2 Plague Burst Crawlers. You had a unit of T-Sun infantry. I had Plague Marines.
The only thing I didn't take were my Terminators. And you had Terminators. Oh, and normally I do take those Terminators. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But effectively we drew, and here's the thing I was trying to tell you after you were upset with the way...
I wasn't upset.
Okay. After you were inconvenienced in the way that you played against Austin was...
He always exaggerates everything.
Okay.
We sound like a married couple, huh?
Let's go like that. Anyway, my point was we drew a couple cards that we were like, no, I've played that one recently. I don't want to play that one. Let's do another one. We draw. And what we wound up with was effectively long ways. It was highest power level, like you gain points by destroying
just
the highest,
killing things. Yeah, it was like a kill point thing, but with power level.
Yep. And then last but not least, we had your
regeneration twist.
Yeah, the twist was you repair D3 wounds to something.
Well, how was that against Death Guard?
Yeah, this is not so good.
Yeah,
actually, I think I got the better of it on the rolls.
Probably,
that one,
yeah.
But it didn't matter.
Anyway. Regenerating Plague Burst Crawlers
that just
is a thing.
That was brutal. That hurt because I would have taken one out if it weren't for that.
Easily.
But yeah, I mean, it was a super fun game, and a lot of stuff died. We both had Demon Princes, which was fun on the table. It was interesting because once you laid out your army, I saw immediately what you were going to do. You were like, oh, well,
push the middle.
These things, bubble wrapping it, and you're just going to push right up the middle. And I'm like, I need to destroy those. I actually, for the first time ever, implemented demons in my Thousand Suns army as well. So I had
you had screamers,
two
or not screamers, flamers,
which made kind of short work of your infantry guys. But then
they did well.
I kind of sacrificed them in the process of doing that. But I needed to clear the lane so I could start firing at other stuff with my las cannon.
But then he had like this. He had this fire point in his backfield, kind of in the middle, with his predators and sorcerers, and I think that was pretty much it. Maybe a squad of
Dreadnought back there too.
A dread. That's right, the Hellbrute.
Or Hellbrute.
And you didn't really zone yourself appropriately by spreading your models out. So my Blight Lords came down. I took the option. I was like, hey, it's a 9-inch charge, but they came down. I stuck the charge.
And I kind of knew they were coming at some point too. I thought I actually had enough space, but I did not.
Yep. So they got in.
Didn't throw out a big enough screen to push them out.
Yeah, it's such a huge part of 40K, right? You have to be able to zone the board, and it's amazing how even with just like a 10-man cultist unit, for example, if you spread those things out 2 inch,
you can take up a lot of space
with that 9-inch blockage, right?
Well, and I think the other problem was we were playing 75 power level. Usually I play 100 power level. I have way more psychers on the board at 100 power level. And so when I saw what he was doing, he's going to push up the middle here. I thought, okay, I'm going to let him come up the middle. I'm going to roll around both sides and just smite the hell out of him with all these psychers. Wait a minute, I don't have that many psychers anymore. I'm like, so he'd come in there, and then honestly, the Terminators were the brutal piece.
They soaked up quite a few, a whole turn.
How are you liking
I did wipe
the
them
Terminators?
out, but it took a while.
They're completely hit or miss. I don't know. I'm not in love with them, but I love the models so much, and I don't field mine. I kind of do like the Don Huson style, where I don't put any like special weapons on them or anything. I keep them just like bolter and axe, and basically it keeps them relatively cheap. And I throw like the flails of corruption in there, like the big swingy flails.
You got to put that in mortal wounds. Is that right?
Yeah, so it gives them like 2d3 attacks, and
it's so nasty.
It can be pretty fun. And then I take a couple of blight launchers. Against him, I only took 5, but I have 10 of them that all run again Don Huson style. He won the Bay Open.
Okay.
Which is that 10-man Terminator unit, because they come down and then for one command point, they're veterans of Long War. Like,
refiring.
Basically their bolters are turned into heavy bolters.
Yeah.
Because Death Guard can rapid fire 18 away.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
It can be helpful.
It is pretty good. I mean, this is the problem I run into with the Scarab Occult Terminators. Like, they're hit or miss.
Yeah.
But typically I use them just like you use those guys. I deep strike them back there. Now the person has to deal with them.
Right.
As you saw, Thousand Suns could be fairly resistant. It's surprisingly durable, which is interesting because it's in a very different way than Death Guard.
Yeah, they're not tough. They just get the better armor. Right. Yeah.
Right.
But it was 2 tough armies just slamming into each other, and a lot of fun.
My army, like once he got those Terminators in there and they destroyed, like I saw one Predator drop and then another Predator drop, and then it's like, oh well, this is pretty much done.
Yeah, right. If he gets in your backfield and he just destroys your fire base.
And then we had the 2 Demon Princes duke it out, and
you would have killed me if we carried on. Yeah, you would have killed me. But
yeah, it was a good game though. It was super fun. I
haven't really done too many chaos on chaos games. I feel
it was a neat matchup.
Those are slobber knockers.
Yeah.
So yep.
What about you, Austin? What have you been playing? Oh, well, we just talked about.
Yeah, we just talked about it. Yeah.
The Wolves versus Justin.
Just mostly painting, and
I think my point was, so having played again Open War with some flexibility as to what you choose.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts there?
I thought it was fun. Yeah, I think that definitely, like in retrospect, in our game, if I had just said, that card, because I remember I made a comment too. I was like, they're Dark Eldar. They should be unaffected by Night Fight, like they have,
Yeah,
but
they're Death Guard. Why are they affected by poison? Like that was always my big thing. I'm like, why am I affected by?
That's a thing.
Yeah,
little poisoned crystals that are bringing down your.
Okay.
Well, it's because the Dark Eldar, they actually, when they go into battle, they custom tailor each toxin to the opponent.
It's anybody with poison.
I hear you, but no, my thoughts were: is it my favorite way to play? No.
Right.
Would I do it again? Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
I think it's not. It's not the kind of thing where you're going to go to a tournament and you're like, we draw this and now we play it, right? One of the things I like about it is if you're setting up a tournament or an event or something, you can use it for inspiration if you're trying to create.
Oh, totally.
If you're trying to create scenarios, you can say, oh, well, this combination probably isn't going to work, and but this one's interesting.
Or just even tweaking the wording, like that Night Fight one, you could be like, you're -1 to hit.
Or whatever.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like you can absolutely.
We could have changed it up, but.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying like in that game in general, but just what Carl's saying as far as like creating your own mission, you could really easily do that and use that as like a template and then fine tune it as you see fit.
But I think my point there is that with a little bit of flexibility, it opens up the door for some really fun games that are not just the standard. Hey, we're playing.
The standard book, Eternal War missions.
Yeah. I'll probably sprinkle it in when I get tired of ITC missions.
Yeah. See, for me, ITC missions are not particularly entertaining.
Have you tried the new ones?
Probably not the new ones, but I played all the ones in the past. And
I just like because they're very balanced. It's very like objectives are kind of pre-placed for you, and it's just kill stuff, capture objectives.
Much like our talk last episode, I think it goes to like, what are you trying to get out of the game?
Sure.
Right. I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Justin, you've been playing.
Yeah, I got a couple games against Robert, my go-to punching bag buddy. Back and forth. Like we have bare knuckle boxing competitive games.
The Octagon.
It's the Octagon. So we played. The first game we played was a 2K kind of competitive 3-battalion list, and he took the very traditional Imperial Soup Army with like the Knight and the Armiger and the Imperial Guard CP farm. And we played both of these games actually with the new FAQ, which I dig. I think
we did take advantage of that too.
We did
the opening round of
the plus.
You spend 2 command points. You take all the. Is it 1 or 2? I can't remember.
It's 2 command points and you get +1 cover.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did you burn that or you burned it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
we burned through CP in that game too.
Oh yeah.
Like real fast.
I think we were both gone. Like maybe turn 2.
Yeah.
Just gone.
Yeah.
That's the way I tend to play my Death Guard. Like I don't hold on to them. I'm just like in your grill and burning all the ones that keep my dudes alive, and Yeah, I like the Death Guard stratagems, but it was a brutal game. We did ITC mission, and it was very bloody. My army was like not nearly as kind of competitive, quote unquote, as it could have been, but I still made a good fight of it. He ended up pulling it out in the end. So Death Guard are, it feels good to lose. It humbles you. That was a fun game. We played the second match was 1750 single battalion, which I've heard a lot of tournaments popping up here and there which are embracing this. So I'm like, hey, let's try it. And he brought a pure custodes list.
Oh, custodes they're a toughie.
They're a thing.
Yeah.
So
those jet bikes.
Oh yeah,
they're not a joke.
He had a big 5-man group of them. He had that banner that makes everything -1 to hit within 6.
Yeah.
The Forge World Dread, the big, massive Custodes Dread.
The Telemon.
That thing, yes. Dear Lord. I kind of ignored it the entire game until the end when it was like my only target because he played real, quote unquote, smart by because we're doing ITC missions. So scoring objectives is crucial. And he only had a single battalion. So he had 3 units of 3 Custodes. So these guys are having to kind of babysit objectives and not really play very lore-y. But when I started killing 1 or 2, he would just kind of hide the remaining one and just sit on objectives. And he had one of those Dawn Eagle bite commanders that was I just could not deal with. He just hid it behind a bunker, and I just couldn't get to him. And he was just getting line breaker but it was just a very close game. Crazy stuff happening. I had a plague caster roll boxcars on Smite. So I landed, and I think I rolled a 5 for mortal wounds. And he was right next to me, and plague casters have a thing where if they successfully cast a spell, a unit within 7, it's called Fallout, plague Fallout. They take another mortal wound. So he blows up, and I caused 6 or 7 mortal wounds to a Custodes unit.
Wow.
And yeah, Robert was like, what? He does what? Lots of fun stuff
wait
happening.
till we talk about Living Lightning.
Yeah, right. But the Custodes are tough, man. Oh my God. You think Nurgle's tough? Try killing those guys. My Lord. I mean, I was having to do stupid stuff like my Demon Prince. I had to sacrifice him because you don't want to let those jet bikes charge you.
Right.
The Dawn Eagles, if they charge you, they're they're stronger. They do more damage. So I had to sacrifice my Demon Prince.
I think Nurgle's tough, but I don't think it I didn't feel it was brokenly tough. I felt oh, this is a challenge.
Yeah. The Plague Burst Crawlers
they're pretty nasty.
Touch much.
So you target priority, right? You got to just make sure you get rid of those things.
Absolutely.
Because they are and the problem is you can't assault them.
You're almost better off doing that. But their shooting.
Are you really? Don't they have flamers on the side?
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
Nasty flamers too.
I think that's the way to arm them too. I've been kind of back and forth on whether I want to give them the big guns on the side or
I don't think you
plague
want to.
spitters.
I think you want to keep the flamer.
Yeah, it keeps them cheap,
weapons.
And then they have the long range kind of threat and the close range threat. So I think it's good. Yep. So it's been fun to play with the army. I'm really enjoying it, and I look forward to adding the demon battalion to it.
Cool.
So what do you think of the aesthetic of that model?
I'm not a huge fan. It looks better in person than the pictures, for sure. I mean, once I saw Justin's in person, I was like, okay. But it's still, I'm not a huge fan. But it is very...
To me, it's very World War I.
It's very... well, so are rhinos and land raiders. But that's all what they're based on. But it is very thematic to the army. I'm just not a huge fan of the aesthetic of it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I feel on it. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, ugh, not the biggest fan. But then, like you said, once I got it in my hand,
grow on me sometimes.
Well, you haven't seen mine yet in person, Austin.
Oh, there you go. My mind is
boom.
I'm gonna reach the 9th level of enlightenment when I see that.
No, I totally hear where you guys are saying.
7th level.
7th level. Oh, okay. Not
they are Nurgle.
It's not my favorite model in the world, but I dig it. It doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, thematically, I think it looked good on the table and stuff. But I
like the ones that Colin did here not too long ago. I like the weathering he did on him, the chipping effect.
Medium, yeah.
It looked really neat.
Justin's look really, really sick.
I'm just doing sponge weathering on it. I want this army just to be. I want it to look good, but I don't want to burn the. I don't want to burn the midnight oil on it.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's take a break. We're gonna come back and we'll start talking Space Wolves.
Sounds good, buddy.
Great Scott, 00. Foam Finger's destroying all the models with his rough touch.
Oh, Mullins Penny. Don't you worry. John is on the case.
How is that, John?
I'm going to warn the world that they should be using the soft blue foam. with the hard cases. Foam Finger will never ruin another model again.
You mean Operation KR? Is the world ready for that, John?
The world is ready. I'll make sure of it. The only way is to spoil Foam Finger's plans.
Hard cases with the soft foam is the only answer. You've convinced me, John. Let's move forward with Operation KR.
The name's Jond. Jimmy Jond.
Oh, John. See? Give 00 John the figures for this mission.
Go to krmulticase.com for some of the best storage and transport solutions for your Army. Match almost limitless combinations of cases and trays in the KR transport system to suit your personal requirements. Reasonably priced, KR allows you to transport your minis safely to and from the tabletop, no matter where that battlefield is.
Hard on the outside, soft in the middle. KR Cases is where John always gets his foam. KR Hard Cases for soft blue foam.
All right, and we are back, and we are talking about the Executioners of the Emperor, the Space Wolves, for this go-around.
That's right.
For our Show of Force episode. Again, thank you, Austin, for joining us. You play Space Wolves. You have a beautiful Space Wolf army.
Yeah, thank you. It's been painted by multiple people.
Painted by some of the best.
Some of the best out there, yes.
I think Colin did some of your original stuff, didn't he?
Colin, I had a paint studio out of Poland.
Oh, yeah.
Den of Imagination.
Oh, yeah.
They did a big chunk of it. And they've done some other pieces.
This was before you became such a professional with an airbrush.
Well, it was the cost issue. It was getting real expensive to commission everything out. I was like going,
I've never
maybe
seen
I should
anybody
just pick it up.
go from 0 to 60 with an airbrush like you.
Well, you see, you took that CK Studios class, and that really
even before you
was-
took that
I know.
class, though, like it was crazy.
your stuff looks good. Your tower amazing, and yeah, very proficient painter.
So okay, so Space Wolves first Codex releases for second edition in 1994. This is long before I play.
That was a good time to be a Space Wolf player
Was
back
it?
then. Oh, it sure was. They were.
That was actually when I joined the military, so I stopped playing 40K basically during my military time. So I missed all of.
I have fond
third
memories.
edition.
I have fond memories of people taking like a 10-man Wolf Guard Terminator unit and having every single one of them armed with a Cyclone missile launcher. And this is back when Cyclone missile launchers were a thing. I mean, they're still a thing, but they were like a thing. And this unit would come down. It would take like 45 minutes to finish, finish firing all the templates. And by the time they were done, it was just a crater where your army used to be.
Holy cow.
They were horrifying, man. They were really, really good.
When they came out around that time, were there models that were specific to them?
Oh, yeah. That was like
they had the old metal Wolfen models too.
They had Wolfen.
Was that third?
Wolfen were
edition?
Wolfen were 4th edition.
Because they disappeared in 5th.
They came out with Eye of Terror campaign.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So back then you had all the beautiful like Jess Goodwin sculpts. Like Jess Goodwin took the whole range.
Oh man,
and,
the Wolf Scouts.
Yep.
Love those models.
They're amazing. Like the wolf. I mean, all the wolves that he did for that army were because I think back then they had more of like that Viking feel to them.
Yep.
Yes.
As opposed to
we'll talk about that difference there too. But the interesting thing is, I feel like with the codexes and the way they've come out over the last year or so, literally year, that like there's not as much fanfare around each one. When they were spread out, like there were when a codex came out, it was usually a huge release, and there were lots of models in support of it and that kind of thing. And now, I mean, for the most part, there may be a couple models in support. I mean, the line's primarily there, but I don't feel like the fanfare is as much. Maybe because it's just coming in such rapid.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's not as much of like a
build up
like holiday celebration. Like I got my Dark Eldar book. Like I want to go on the top of the mountain and scream it. Because the release is so hot
it's
and heavy.
Rapid fire, just one right after the other. It's hard to keep up.
It'll be interesting to see what they do once everything's out. Like just when they go back and
I'm curious to see where they go.
Plug gaps and like, hey, let's redo those aspect warriors, or let's. But I think the company's obviously the main thing is like let's get all these armies like
up and going,
and then we can revisit them and add as needed. But so second edition Space Wolves, like many armies, were a thing. Super cool.
Okay. April 2000, third edition Space Wolves update.
Yep.
Nothing to write.
Yeah, I don't remember anything super horrifying from the third edition book.
Okay.
I really can't think of anything that stands out. Unlike, we'll get to 5th edition.
Yeah, so fifth edition rolls around. Yeah. Space Wolves come back. Now, there's a few notable things about 5th edition Space Wolves.
MSU
multiple small units, was king at 40K when this happened.
So were Razorbacks.
Yep. You would have Razorbacks, you would have Long Fangs, because Long Fangs can now split fire, which nobody else could do at that time.
They were special snowflakes at the time, Carl.
Yeah, and they made use of that. I remember distinctly at this time, Tony Kopak was winning tournaments at Adepticon with this army because it was so flexible with its small ability to move around the board and just lay down tons of fire.
Really good psychic powers, too.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, really good psychic
Living
powers.
Lightning and Jaws of the
World Wolf.
Yep.
Doing work.
Dropping down in
the Allfather's work, I should say.
Dropping down in a drop pod and drawing a line through a series of models and saying make initiative tests on all these models or they're gone. And yeah, boy, that was brutal. That was brutal.
I feel like back then too, couldn't they take Grey Hunters couldn't take heavy weapons, but Grey Hunters
they still can't.
They still can't, but they just had like everything going for them because they had like the bolt pistol, the chainsaw, the bolter, like
as opposed to a tactical marine, right?
Yeah, I think people would usually rock them with like plasma guns and stuff, and just kind of MSU it and hop out of a Razorback. And
the other thing I think that was notable at this time when these came out was that they got basic troops in plastic, Terminators in plastic, and up until that point, you had not seen the level of detail that GW could do in plastic. Like, it was a leap forward, I think, for Games Workshop in terms of their plastic models and the iconography and everything that came on those kits. And you got
just the sheer amount of bits.
Oh my god, the number of bits on those sprues were just crazy. I gotta say, because you could do your Wolf Scouts. You could do your Grey Hunters, your Blood Claws.
Wasn't there even like Terminator bits on the sprue? Or no, it was all power armor.
No, it was all
in the Terminator sprue.
In the Terminator sprue, yes.
But there was like different heads.
Yeah, there was different heads and all sorts of
Yeah.
awesome stuff on that sprue. I still love that kit.
You were going to add something?
I would say I have a real love-hate with, I mean, I appreciate the Grey Hunter / Blood Claw kit. My one gripe is that a lot of the heads are so goofy that I could never bring myself to use them. Like they have like the Barbertet mustaches and like the silly like bald guys.
Yeah,
with
like
some
of them.
For me.
I just don't use those heads.
Yeah,
exactly. Those are the guys that are wearing helmets.
Yeah. I mean, I tend, when I build my power armor armies, I like having them mostly helmeted, and then just having it just makes like the.
I usually do the sergeant without a helmet.
Exactly. Yeah, because it seems like the Space Wolves are like helmets. We don't need no stinking helmets.
Well, there's a reason for that too, which is the Canis Helix and some stuff there,
and the hair.
Well, yeah. I mean,
got to have the fab hair.
Look, if I had hair like any of those guys, I'd probably be rocking it.
But some of those heads are awesome, though. Just awesome heads.
A handful of them are rad, but there's a lot of them that are just rubbish. You know what heads are sweet, Space Wolf, and we're kind of sidetracked, I'm sorry. Some heads that are great to put on your Space Wolves are the new Marauder Horseman heads. Because they have that real, like from the
Viking feel.
The Viking, they have like the plated beards and like the mohawks. And
I think the other super notable change here was they went from gray color scheme
from the
this
Heresy
powder blue color scheme.
Well, no, they were in 40K. They've always been the powder blue.
Have they? I
Yes,
thought it was way more pronounced here.
They
in
have
5th edition.
It's more pronounced now. Like I have my old 5th edition codex here, and you can see it's not as blue.
It's gotten more powder.
It's gotten more powder blue.
Yeah,
and it's always really bothered me because when I started playing, 40K and got into the hobby, that was one of my first things was Space Wolves, and they were gray.
Yeah.
Because it just never made sense for me for them to be blue. It's like when they're Space Wolves and they're gray, and why are they now blue?
Baby blue.
I don't know.
But it's actually really grown on me now.
Yeah.
And if you look at mine, they're baby blue.
Yeah.
Minor Codex gray. I couldn't bring my minor Codex gray and then crimson red. And
on the shoulders
and stuff, and it works. It makes them a lot more menacing, but ultimately, hey, they're your puppies.
Right,
paint them how you want. But all through the history of 40K, as far as I can recall, like they've always had that light blue scheme. I think it was more of a heresy to 40K thing.
Was it
that they went from that Codex dark gray to powder blue?
You would know better than I would.
No, they did. From 30K. They're like a slate dark gray.
Right. Which in my opinion, like fits their lore and their feel so much more. But
I could go with either direction, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you. When that blue, like on Austin's, is done well, I think it looks really striking.
Sure.
I'm not a fan of the way they look in the Codex, particularly. Like,
I think your bases are snow bases too. I think when you go the powder blue, it maybe works a bit better with the snow bases. Your army's striking too, so I'm not trying to be a mean guy. Just my personal preference. I just prefer the darker wolves.
I think that's fine. 7th edition Codex comes out. They're okay in 7th edition. I didn't think they were hugely productive.
7th edition was more Hero Hammer, right?
Yeah.
It was, you saw a lot of Thunderwolf Cav with Iron Priest on them.
Well, here's
did the Thunderwolves come out in 5th or
5th?
Well, they came out in 5th, but they didn't have the didn't really have the plastic models until 6th edition.
Oh, that's right.
You only had the Herod Deathwolf and
the Thunder Squirrel.
Yeah, the Thunder Squirrel.
Yeah.
You could get and this is where I think GW missed a beat too, because third parties came in,
jumped on that thing,
and
right?
They jumped all over it.
Some of the, Mr. Dandy from Wargamma produced some great third party Space Wolves, the Wolf Riders that are still there, and I think honestly I
kind of prefer.
In some ways I prefer his. They're bulkier and heavier, but. Yeah, I think they missed a boat there for a while, and third-party companies were able to swoop in and kind of deliver some things that GW wasn't.
Yeah, that's kind of where we saw that shift too. And if a model is not out, it don't get rules.
It doesn't get rules. And so by the time 7th came out, the 7th Codex came out, they had models for them. It just took them a long time to come out with those models.
Yeah.
The other thing that they could take advantage of in 6th and 7th edition was the way wound allocation worked. And so when you had a bunch of Thunderwolf Cav with multi-wounds, you could spread those wounds around significantly.
Yeah, I don't miss those wound allocation days.
No,
whatsoever.
It just really slowed the game down.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, this guy's going to take one wound, and
now this
guy's going to take a wound, and it really bogged the game down.
Yeah. And then, of course, now we have the 8th edition Codex. Kind of thoughts on how 8th edition Codex is playing for you, Austin?
I've only had a few games with it, but I feel it really, with the stratagems and the chapter tactics
and the sagas,
I feel like it really plays like a Space Wolf army. You would imagine, guys, big heroes charging in, doing things, guys becoming lone wolves, and after that's a very situational stratagem.
Sure.
They're dead choppy though in combat.
Oh, they are very choppy.
Hitting on 2s is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah,
and Thunderwolf Cav have not missed a beat.
They have not missed a beat. They are expensive, but they do the good man's work.
And the 6-inch pylon too is really clutch.
I was telling Carl about that earlier. So they can the heroes can heroically intervene at 6 inches versus 3, and then on top of that, they get a +1 to their hit when they do that.
All Space Wolves, whether they're charged or
whether they charge or get charged,
right?
Yeah,
they're getting a +1.
It's clutch.
That makes them very, very choppy,
especially when you have a character nearby that's allowing you to reroll 1s.
Yes,
it becomes a thing.
So let's talk a little bit about the history of the Space Wolves, kind of where they come from. So they were the 6th Legion. Interesting enough, and I guess I didn't really realize this, but it plays pretty heavily into what was the latest book, the one about Russ?
Wolfbane?
Wolfbane.
Yes.
Is that Russ is the second found Primarch, which causes a bit of jealousy on the part of Horus, as you learn.
He did not like that very much.
Yeah.
He didn't like being not the special snowflake
This guy's a savage.
Anymore.
We should just get rid of him. Those were his initial kind of thoughts there. But realized, I think, fairly quickly that, this guy's a lot smarter than this act he puts on. Originally, though, the 6th Legion was made up of savages from Terra and whatnot that kind of were brought into by the Emperor you're going to be this initial Space Marine Legion. We all know that they were basically created even before the various Primarchs were kind of tracked down. Once Russ was found, they were all then put under his command, and of course Fenris became kind of the home of the Space Wolves and Tell me a little bit about Fenris.
Oh, Fenris. Such a happy place to
be. Such a nice vacation spot this time of year.
So, yeah, that planet has an elliptical orbit around its sun.
Yeah.
And it goes from basically mostly frozen most of the time until it gets real close to the sun. And then tectonic plates are ripping up.
Yep.
Things are moving all over the place.
Which kind of forces the residents to be nomadic.
Yes, and they're always fighting for resources, And
the planet's primarily covered in water. So
yes, a lot of monstrous beasts, and that's when they come up out of the depths to feed on all
Kraken.
the life. So that's kind of where you get the Viking feels during that time.
It's a death world.
It is, yeah.
Which the reason this becomes prominent with the Space Wolves is that this only the strong survive, right? And so from those warrior clans, they pick the toughest and
they have a
warriors.
thing. Basically, when the kids get old enough to basically hold a weapon, if the kid doesn't hold the weapon, sorry,
toss them in the ocean.
They basically send them off.
It's brutal, yeah. It's kind of like the Catachin kind of feel to it, where it's just these people are just hardy, they're sturdy because this planet is trying to kill them every step of the way. So it makes for that in that Viking lore. You have all these kraken coming up from the oceans and crazy wolves and mammoths and.
That's only on the northernmost continent of Azaheim, and that's the only stable piece of land that you got, and that's where you got the Fang.
Right.
The Fang is what?
The Fang is the
stronghold.
The stronghold of the Space Wolves,
which is a mountain that literally reaches up into
the they have
out
actually,
of the planet's atmosphere.
Yeah, they actually have spaceports. You can literally bring in your strike cruiser,
dock it
into the Fang,
and it's surrounded by I think several other mountains too. There's like a name for those mountains. I don't remember the name of it, but basically it's not just like the single mountain. It's also these mountains around it,
right? And like the water is like basically just sheer cliffs.
Yeah,
and like the local people know, just you don't go there.
Right. So the Emperor kind of latching on to the Space Wolves' ferocity and that kind of thing kind of kept them separate from the other legions,
right?
Because he had intentions of these were going to be, as we've come to find out, the Emperor's executioners. They're the ones that keep everybody in line who gets out of line or that he needs to use for particularly brutal type missions.
They're like the World Eaters, just hairier.
Yeah, I would argue a little more in control than the World Eaters.
A bit.
So one of the interesting things was that and spoiler alert coming if you haven't read this by now or heard this by now, but the wolves are also rumored to be responsible for.
It's been implied in multiple of the Black Library books
that they are responsible for the destruction of at least one of the two forgotten and wiped legions that are no longer to be mentioned. But more likely, I think it's both of them. And then, as we know, a third one, the Thousand Sons.
That job's not finished yet.
Falls victim to the Space Wolves. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But I think that's a really interesting point. That I think that was a big reveal early on in the Horus Heresy series, where they imply all of a sudden, because they'll constantly make references to these two missing legions.
Right.
Like they'll walk down a hallway that has 20 statues, 20 places for statues, and there's two statues, but they have like
they're just blank.
Or they have cloth over them, and nobody can look under the cloth or whatever. I mean, there's always some allusion to that. So when they revealed that, and I think it was hey, we're gonna go take out the Thousand Sons. Well, we've done it before, and you're like, wait, what? I mean, that was kind of a new concept at that point.
They're loyal dogs, aren't they?
Well, they're incredibly loyal to the point where
Malkador
and the Emperor knew that they would not. Like when the Horus Heresy begins, like there's no doubt in their mind that the wolves would fall to chaos. Like for whatever reason, they're totally confident in the fact that the wolves wouldn't, and they end up taking units of Space Wolves and embed them with other Primarchs, other loyalist legions,
right,
to keep an eye on them and make sure that they don't fall. And of course, a couple of these legions that they did stick them with, like Alpha Legion and what those wolves just never heard from
right.
again. At that
They knew.
point.
Well, I mean, we got
Night
the
Lords
Blood
and Alpha
Angels
Legion.
too, so
That's
those guys didn't make it out.
That is true. They were sent to monitor the Blood Angels, and they end up falling to the Red Thirst and end up wiping out their little coterie of Space Wolves that are there to watch over. That actually causes some significant problems in the future.
A little bit of trust issues going on.
But I do find that interesting, and I do find it interesting in the Horus Heresy Black Library series where they have these wolves that are just standing there, and they're like, oh, I think there were points where they're standing next to not Marnius Calgar,
Rogel
Dorn, and he's like, oh yeah, these guys are here to babysit me, and he's constantly belittling them, and they're just standing there. Well, this is our job to stand here and do this.
This is what we do.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting role for them to take on. So we know Russ goes out from Terra at a certain point to engage Horus directly. We don't know quite what. I don't want to spoil.
You don't want to spell
Yeah.
Wolfsbane, yes.
Even before that, though, I love the story of how, like, the Emperor, when he comes down and meets Russ, like, they actually get into a little scafoozle, right?
Sure.
They actually fight each other, and the Emperor's the only one to best Russ. It's kind of like that warrior's honor, right? Like, he's not going to bow to anybody that can't beat him in combat.
Yeah.
Thought that was kind of cool.
I will say, without spoiling Wolfsbane, that Russ is given something called the Spear of the Emperor, which he's reluctant to carry, but it does have.
It's not a weapon of
his choice,
exactly. Yeah.
Although he's quite good with it, but he doesn't find spears to be like up close and personal enough. Was one of the things I think he refers to. But this weapon does become immensely important later on.
Well, you get mentioned in in 40K novels, right? Specifically, the Ragnar Blackmane series. The Spear of Russ does take a part in that.
Cool.
Yeah, true. So eventually, after the fall of Terra, well, the defense of Terra and the collapse of the Chaos forces, and they're fleeing back to the Eye of Terror, Russ gathers his flock, if you will, large parts of his pack, and enters the Eye of Terror to basically hunt down and bring justice to all these guys who've caused this problem, and he's never heard from again after that. And so there's a lot of speculation on what has become of him. Any thoughts?
Right, and that's when after Russ goes out into the Eye of Terror to hunt down the traitor legions, they wait a while, and then he leaves behind one of his most trusted guys, and it's Bjorn Fellhunded.
Right.
And so he's probably the oldest character.
He is the
he's
oldest
been around
Space Marine character.
a while.
Yeah, so he's been around.
Sort of living.
Sort of living. It's much harder to raise him up, out of his coma, I guess.
Yeah.
But so they leave he leaves Bjorn behind, and he eventually becomes, the first Great Wolf, which is the chapter master.
Right. And what's interesting is at this point, again, we have the Primarch of the Ultramarines shows up and finally says, okay, we can't have this happen again. We need to break up all the legions into companies. Dorn resists that. Russ actually does not resist that. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. This sounds good. But it never quite happens. Right?
No, not quite. He's like going, I'm all for it.
First off, they've lost.
Oh, they lost
thousands of Space Wolves at this point.
They were already one of the smallest. They were already one of the smallest legions.
Yeah.
During the Heresy era. But then, just all the actions they took, the prosecution of, Prospero.
The running out to go face Horus.
Basically, the Alpha Legion showing up right after that, took a really big toll on the Legion. And then, them basically limping back to Terra, and then
being told, okay, you got to break it. They're like, okay, well, we got enough to split off this one other group.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well.
That ends up like it's kind of
the Wolf Brothers.
Yeah, the Wolf Brothers.
The second founding.
They end up kind of falling to
the Canis Helix,
and
then the Wolfen, and they lose it. And
they kind of lose it and end up kind of just falling apart and being wiped out. And at that point in time, they kind of decide, you know what? We're not really going to take part in this. We're not going to really break up our group anymore at this point. We have to kind of keep a leash on it, if you will.
Oh, the puns. The
It's
puns.
going to never end. Yeah, I mean, eventually that chapter is disbanded by the Inquisition because of the genetic instability. So let's talk a little bit about the Canis Helix and what it is. You want to start this off, Austin?
Well,
or Justin, you want to?
It's basically, it's like what makes the Space Wolves like so special, right? It's basically in their initiation, it's a gene seed implant, right? Mm-hmm. And it basically makes them like have like extreme senses and
hence the no helmets, right? Their smell
guess,
is heightened.
yeah.
Right.
Even beyond normal Space Marine standards.
right. It just makes them like think Wolverine, like Logan from
Yeah, it's actually
Wolverine.
a good comparison.
Turns them into like these apex predators.
Right. One of the drawbacks to it, though, is there is a mutation effect that can sometimes take over. And it's interesting that a lot of the Space Marine, almost all of them have some flaw in some
Right.
some way.
It's what makes them interesting, really, ultimately.
Unless you're perfect, like the Ultramarines.
Or the Emperor's Children.
Then they're just interesting because they're perfect. But
Jeez. He just can't let go.
I can't.
That's why it stayed in the group.
But everyone, like the Blood Angels have, the Red Thirst, and Black Rage, and the for the Space Wolves, they have this thing where they basically turn into feral animals.
And as they get older, their teeth grow longer
Yep.
and pointier and can punch through armor, and their skin gets leathery for whatever reason.
Right, but their drawback is that they can lose control of this.
Right.
They can just full on wolf out. Curse of the Wolfen.
And the whole
Yes.
this is the savagery that they kind of unleash, very much like you said, like the Blood Angels. They kind of get overcome by their red grief.
Yep.
These guys get a little crazy.
When this occurs, they're basically just set loose on Fenris.
Well, that's part of the whole
they're
initiation
there.
phase, right? They get sent out 1,000 miles away from the Fang,
And have to make it
and then
back.
they have to make it back with basically
A stick.
nothing. Right?
and kind of initially overcome.
They have to overcome the test of Mordecai.
Right.
Right. So they got to overcome. It gives
Becoming
you
a
the
feral
the
beast.
sweats. It's like the.
like heroin withdrawal.
It's pretty.
Almost,
it's all bad, right? Because your body's going through all sorts of crazy changes, and you're sent out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, naked with a knife.
I don't even
And-
think they give you a knife.
I feel like they give him like a blade, but
Anyway.
who knows?
Either way, but you
Either
got
way, you're severely underprepared.
yeah. You got these big ice bears. You got the ice trolls, the doppelgangers,
Just the
and then
Fenrisian wolves.
The Ferenzian wolves.
Yep.
They're not nice. It's not a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Well, arguably, like the statement is there's no wolves on Fenris.
Right.
Arguably, those Fenrisian wolves may have once been space wolves.
They
They're aspirants that don't succeed
don't make it,
and
yeah.
mutate to that point, and that's what they become. So,
Well, they're these wolves are just ultra intelligent too. They're the most dangerous animal on
which
on
kind of
Fenris.
lends some
it lends some credibility to that
credibility to
hypothesis. Yes,
They never answer that, and I think
Right,
it's
they don't-
good that they don't. I think
Exactly.
it's good that they keep that kind of open ended, because if they answered it, it would take
takes
some
away
of
some of the
fun
mystery, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I remember reading that lore though of like how a space wolf is created and just being like so enthralled by it as a kid.
Really?
It's just so cool. Yeah, because it's like
They drink from
they give them this big feast,
Mm-hmm.
and they're eating the elk and they're gorging themselves on this wine, and it's basically has all the gene seed and all the
Right.
stuff that's going to make them a Marine, and then they're just like, boom, throw them out in the wild and make your way back, and it's like,
come back if you can.
come back if you can, and it's like, survive this journey and you're going to be entered into the halls of the Viking and one of us, and it was just really
the
like
Sky Warriors.
the
Yes.
Sky Warriors
Is what
right.
That's what the native Ferenzians call them.
Right.
The Sky Warriors.
Which is super cool in itself, right? You imagine these like marauding bands, like, this one guy charges up and takes down a mammoth, and all of a sudden, like, this dropship comes down and he's
Right.
he's plucked up, and taken away, and the people are like, oh my God, what is this?
lends itself to kind of that Viking
Totally.
mentality. And again, we're almost to that section where we'll kind of talk about how they've morphed a little bit, because I agree with you. They've changed significantly from that. But, how do they fit into 40K? I think, as the Emperor's executioners, that's kind of become their staple, right? That's where they stand as a Marine chapter. Why they're different than other, like, why are they not in the Space Marine Codex? Why are they have their own codex?
Because they really tend to do things their own way, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you take you took a look at just the raw number of strength, the number of recruits that they have.
Yeah.
It's more than a standard, Marine chapter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk about this, but, we can talk about it now.
In theory, Black Templars have
the Black
way
Templars
more, too.
probably way more, yeah. That's probably
for different
the other
reasons,
one.
yeah.
Yes. But, you got 12 great companies.
Right.
Right? And, just the standard complement in a company is not necessarily 100. It could be more. It could
But
be
they
less.
are organized
right.
way different than
Yes.
a regular Codex Astartes Space Marine.
And just the way
company.
they fundamentally
Chapter.
do things, right? Like most chapters, the scouts are like the new,
neophytes.
The neophytes. They're the recruits, right? They're the freshest, newest guys. Space Wolves, as an example, they're like the veterans that have fought through and the kind of the more lone wolf type guys. Just very subtle differences like that, right? You see where regular chapters to Space Wolves, almost everything's different if you think about it.
Yeah. So again, Emperor's Executioners. I think when you look at how they fit into events in the 40K universe, the key ones are their battle and ongoing antipathy with Thousand Suns, which has had lasting impact. I mean, even as you move into new era of 40K, where the timeline has moved forward,
especially in the end of 7th, right?
Right.
Oh, they really pushed the storyline forward.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just crazy.
They basically almost wipe out Fenris.
Yeah.
Right. The Thousand Suns show up in all of their power with
silver towers dropping all over the place.
You have Magnus himself comes back
again.
Right. I mean,
because this is the second time
he did come back in 32.
The first Battle of Fenris.
Right. Battle of the Fang.
Yes.
Which, by the way, fantastic novel. We'll talk about that later too. But yeah, right. He does return at that point. But here in the game of 40K2, in lore, he is fully returned and realized, and is really the opening salvo in some ways for what becomes the Cicatrix Maledictum, the splitting of the galaxy in half by chaos. This is all part of the initial setup and then the wipeout of Cadia and such. So it all ties together into this huge into this huge storyline, but into where we sit right now, which is just fascinating. So in many ways, the Space Wolves being effectively tricked into attacking
initially, during the heresy,
into the burning of Prospero. In some ways, kind of, I don't know if Magnus would have turned without this event. I mean, I kind of wonder.
He was kind of on the fence,
He wasn't even on the fence. He was just like, I need to tell the Emperor. I need to tell the Emperor. He goes to warn the Emperor.
That's right.
What has occurred, that Horus has fallen. He shows up screwing things up. And I mean, if the wolves had not then attacked, would he have fallen? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have.
We'll never know.
It pushes him in that direction for sure. Certainly by the end of that. I mean, if he had not fallen, I think his legion would have fallen to the deals and whatnot that he had made. But I think the wolves' cause
was
either
just
hastening of that.
Was the push, the final push, right?
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about how the wolves have evolved, and we kind of touched a little bit on this over time, but obviously they've gone from gray, well, sort of. In the history of the 40K
color
universe,
scheme.
they've changed color schemes a bit. But Justin, you were kind of alluding to this, which was they kind of had this Viking, like it was definitely Viking flavored and feel, and it's still there a bit, but it kind of goes to this more like, well, the name is Space Wolves, and now we got wolf this and wolf that. Talon missiles and Fang.
Oh, the Storm Fang, the Storm Wolf.
Everything is wolf and Fang and Claw. Where I feel like some of the Viking influence gets kind of lost in that. What
I mean, you still got the sagas, right?
Yep.
And that you still get the Viking flavor of that. Yeah, it's definitely not gone, but with the naming convention of the units and whatnot, it's definitely kind of fallen back.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is the original. I think it was the original Dark Angels actually had like an American Indian kind of thing.
Yes.
They had.
I read a book about the Gene Stealer cults and on this one hive world, and it was very American, Native American themed.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think things evolve over time. I do feel like if you read the Horus Heresy information about Space Wolves, and then you read the current kind of Space Wolf Codex and that kind of thing, and I've always felt this, like the Forge World stuff is way more gritty, way more in tune, I think, with the Viking feel. Yeah. And then here, it's almost more cartoony a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. That's just my take on it.
I kind of feel the same way. I'm with you. I mean, Thunderwolf Cav, in my eyes, never should have been a thing.
Oh, see, I actually
it's just,
like
it's just too much, man.
It's too much. Just a different flavor, right? And I mean, it really sets them apart from a standard Codex army, Codex Marine army.
And I think some people have that problem. I know Jeff has that real problem with, he doesn't like the Thunderwolf Cav. He doesn't like the wolfy wolf stuff. In moderation, I like it. I actually like the Thunderwolf Cav.
That's the way I feel about it, yeah.
I think I agree with you.
I think maybe if they had stuck to like just having like maybe characters being able to, like just a more random, unique thing to the army instead of like a whole army of Marines riding wolves. Maybe if I like the models more too, that would be.
Why?
I'm just not a fan of the models personally.
Okay. Well, okay, so we're gonna agree to disagree here. I agree with you, Austin. I think they do make the army a little more unique. They give it a little flavor. As much as I like that, I cannot get behind the
Santa sleigh.
The
Santa sleigh is that thing does bother me.
And I mean, I see
that's where they were trying to keep the Viking theme going.
You think?
And just failed miserably.
Then it should have been a long ship.
It should have.
Yeah, a scotch longer.
Well, it's a short ship. It's a very short ship.
There's only room for one.
Yes.
It's a short bus.
I didn't want to say it, but yes, it's a short bus.
I'm not a huge fan of that particular model.
Can you hear the internet already? I can hear.
No. I think. Look, I don't think we're saying anything that is
it's nothing
controversial.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Very few people like that model.
And like I love the new Dreadnought kit, but like the Murder Fang and like the Wolfy Dreadnoughts and stuff. It's just too much, man.
I'm okay with that. I just do not like the face on Murder Fang. That weird wolfen head thing. I'm like going, where's the rest of his body?
But
how does this thing fit in there? I just don't get it.
I do really like, what I really like about them are the fetishes that are on everything. The
wolf
pelts.
Tails and the pelts. Yeah,
I love it.
The little little wolf skulls, that kind of thing.
I'm all for it. Yep.
Your Contemptor Dread that you have with like the big wolf skull thing on it. Like,
yeah, that's my Bjorn actually.
Yeah,
I run that as Bjorn.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Because it made more sense for me to have, if he's Heresy era, why is he rolling around in a Mark IV box dread? Yeah. He should be rolling around in a Contemptor or a Leviathan, know? I mean, yes, Leviathan Bjorn. That needs to be a thing.
That does need to be a thing.
That would be amazing, actually.
Absolutely.
So you started to allude to kind of their organizational structure. Can you talk a little bit about that and how they're organized?
Yeah, so there's 13 great companies, and we'll talk about the 13th.
We don't talk about the 13th, do we? Can we talk about the 13th?
We do. Yeah, but they have
now.
Yeah, they have 12 great companies, and
there's a great wolf leading each one, right?
Yes, there's a wolf
and
lord
leading. Company is, like if you were going to compare it to something,
like a company size.
Is it company or chapter?
No, it's company.
It company? Okay. I think you're right.
I don't recall actually reading where they specify. I think it was like each one can be kind of different, like you said. One could be waxing, one could be waning.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, just based on the number of recruits they've had and the casualties, and how often they've been able to recruit new wolf packs.
Mm-hmm. So they're fully self-contained army.
Yes,
a great.
They have their own ships. They have their own tech marines or iron priests. We'll call them here.
Yep. Talk about that for a minute. So not only that, they don't really have librarians.
They do not. They have apothecary. Priests. They have apothecary librarians, rune priests.
Okay. And how is that different from a librarian? like thematically? Any thoughts there?
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, they're librarians, but they're also, they're apothecaries, right? And they kind of serve both roles. And
almost like the village shaman.
Yeah, I mean, they draw more on the nature, right? They're not
Right.
drawing directly from the warp, and they talk about a lot of this in the 30. They are drawing from the warp, but yeah,
it's there's a lot of discussions around that,
right. Along with the the white scars,
Right.
They're not fully tapping into the warp. They're tapping in, but they're trying to stay on the outskirts of it.
Exactly. I think that's a great way of putting it, right? They don't delve as deep as say
Thousand
others
Suns.
do. Yeah. And I think it's a real splitting hairs argument.
It really
that they're
is.
making, because
And that's why they kept using them even after the
Council of Nicaea.
The Council of Nicaea.
Yeah. So there's these 12 great companies. Each one is run by a
Wolf Lord.
Wolf Lord, which is the equivalent of like your captain.
Captains, yes.
Yeah. Although it sounds cooler to say Wolf Lord in my mind. Yeah. And these are in much like a Space Marine, although I think more pronounced here. These are heroes in themselves, right? They are like saga bearers and
you get that sense of a lot more like individual character.
From each of these Wolf Lords.
Each model, each dude. And each company is basically comprised of a number of packs, right? Which basically equate to like a tack squad, if you think in that terms. But some could be bigger, some could be smaller.
Well, so here's the thing, because they start off as blood claws, right? And you start off when you're in a pack, you stay in that pack, and so those squads will start off bigger than
like
a 10-man squad.
15,
Those
20
15
guys,
in the game, 15 in the game, but yeah, they can start off probably like 20 in the lore.
In the lore, right?
And then as they slowly take losses and they become more skilled and more tempered,
right?
They get promoted to Grey Hunters,
right? Once they're deemed like, hey, this guy's not a total lunatic, and
he can kind of hold it back a little bit, hold back the rage,
right?
And so then the last company we kind of touched on was the 13th company. What's up with the 13th company?
So the 13th company was sent after
Russ
Magnus.
And Magnus,
Yeah, they sent the whole great company was sent into the warp or into the eye.
Thorin Bloodhowl was the Wolf Lord, right?
Yeah, he was sent in to basically hunt down the remainers of the Thousand Suns.
And what happened to them?
They've been lost in the warp until recently, and now they're back.
Right.
And they're back in a big way. Completely changed. It's some great stories in Curse of the Wolfen about how they came back, right? There's the reports of these giant shaggy looking, just roided out huge monstrous guys, but they're wearing like little pieces and chunks of old
salvaged scrap
like Mark III, Mark IV armor.
Yeah.
And, from the pick captures, they've determined that, oh my God, these are the 13th company.
Right.
We need to scoop all these guys up before the Inquisition and like other Space Marine chapters find out about these guys, because it could look bad upon us, right?
Yeah.
Could be a thing, yeah.
It's interesting that they don't just say we need to wipe these guys out before somebody, sees them, but we need to grab them and utilize them.
Yeah, well, it caused a lot of issues. Yeah, but especially between the Dark Angels,
right?
Even the wolves, though, because like some were
even
for it, some were like, I don't know about these guys. They give us a bad name.
What's interesting is, what were you saying about the Dark Angels?
So yes, they were basically on one of the planets. I can't remember which one. There was a section of Blood Angel scouts that were tasked with monitoring one of the Dark Angel's relics, I think it is. Mm-hmm. And these Wolfen came out and basically slaughtered them all. And it was all part of, Tzeentch's dirty plans.
Right.
To kind of set up the wolves to take that fall.
The funny thing about that is like, for the Dark Angels, like, oh, you got nothing to hide either, right?
Yeah.
You're all good.
Yeah,
okay?
Nothing there. Nothing to see.
We talked about Blood Claws, which are the neophytes, kind of the entry level guys. We've talked a little bit Sky Claws, which are kind of their jump pack
The flying lunatic sky claws.
Yeah.
Or the blood claws.
When a blood claw is extra crazy, they give him a jump pack, right?
Yes. They say go for it. Gray Hunters, you talked about that a little bit. They're kind of the more mature, think tactical squad equivalent. Then we have Long Fangs. Long Fangs are kind of the heavy weapons, long range guys.
The veterans. These guys have been around a while.
You have
Long of Tooth. Long of Fang.
You have Wolf Guards, which are kind of the retinue bodyguards of the Wolf Lord that are for each of the great companies. And then you have Wolf Scouts. And you were talking about this a little bit earlier. What's the deal with the Wolf Scouts?
So the Wolf Scouts they come after the Grey Hunters. Yep. They could be Grey Hunters, they could be Blood Claws, but they're just a little bit off. They're more loners.
Or their pack might have been wiped out.
Or the pack might have been wiped out. But most of these guys are like, they're more of the loner guys. They don't fit in well with the pack. And they've always been aloof and off to the side. And they still want to utilize these guys. So they put them in little small units where they can go into the back.
Behind enemy lines.
Act as scouts, disrupt things. And
if they don't wind up in there, they end up becoming a lone wolf.
That's when the pack's been wiped out.
Wiped
to the
out the last
man.
guy. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then there's one guy left, and effectively he's kind of, I don't want to say on a death wish, but in a way, kind of.
Yeah, he kind of is. Yeah, he's like, oh man, my pack's dead.
How much damage can I do before I go down?
I'm gonna go out with as much glory, hunt down as much glory as I possibly can.
And it's so cool they introduced that into the game too, and that stratagem. It's so fitting, so cool.
Okay, since there's no other founding chapters, usually at this point in a show of force, we would talk about, what chapter of Space Marine or what branch
second founding,
or what
sister chapter or whatnot.
Yeah, what Tyrannid branch do you like, or that kind of thing. Since there isn't that, I thought what we would do is talk about kind of what your favorite company is, what your favorite great company is, and why in this case. And let's start with you, Austin.
Oh, I gotta go with Ragnar Blackmane.
And why is that?
He's just such a cool character.
He's boss.
He went straight from Bloodclaw to Wolfguard. He just completely bypassed Grey Hunter. He's
funny.
like, I don't need to mess with any of that. He went straight to basically retinue.
Isn't
and then
he the subject of some of the initial Black Library books?
Yes.
He's the main character in the
not Black Library
omnibus,
book.
right?
Yes, those. Yeah, and there's a lot of great stories there about him. But he's one of the youngest. He's like the youngest Wolf Lord. He's like the protege. Ulrich the Slayer, who's like the high wolf priest for the space wolves, just sees great things in him.
Interesting. Okay.
And basically, anytime he's like the master of planetary assaults, in 7th edition you actually had special rules for him. You got free drop pods. It was raining drop pods, and that was a thing. Remember back in free points,
free units,
and that was it was pretty good.
Justin, what about you?
So as we're reading through them, I chose Enger Krakendoom's Sea Wolves because I kind of, like we were talking about earlier, I embrace the whole
Viking
ideology of the Viking thing. And so these guys, they're kind of from like the southern tip, I guess, where they're kind of known as like the Sea Raiders, and they're darker skinned, they're a little shorter tempered, basically Vikings that adorn their vehicles and airborne assault craft with shields.
Okay.
Much like Viking longships. And I thought I
didn't even draw that parallel.
Super cool. And they're known for just super swift attacks, strike hard, strike fast, much like a Viking raid. Mm-hmm. And that in my mind, I was like, dude, if I ever go back to my Space Wolves, I'm going to have to model shields on this.
Shapeways, my friend. Shapeways.
Yeah. I just got the creative juices flowing. So super cool.
I chose the Blood Maws, which are led by Bran Redmaw. For a couple reasons. One, they were featured in the Doom of Mimiara book. And I thought, although as an Imperial Armor book goes, that one is kind of weak in the story area, they feature kind of coolly in it. They're known for their savagery. They've drawn the attention of the Inquisition because they're so savage. Their helmets, like I think the icon is like a wolf with like dripping fangs.
Yes.
And
A
so
red
their
maw.
helmets, so their helmets will take the mouth area and paint it red.
That's cool.
Oh,
which is
yeah,
kinda
that's cool.
And the Wolf Lord brand Red Maw, actually there was a concept model for him that was displayed.
Never released, and I
Yeah.
was so sad about that because
There was concept art for him, right, in the book?
Well, there's a picture of there's a very cool picture of a space wolf in there that could conceivably.
okay.
But they did this concept model for him, and for whatever reason they weren't happy with it. But it
so sad, disappointing.
yeah, and I think his character had the ability to shapeshift.
Yeah, he shapeshifts. He becomes he
basically can Hulk out into
Curse
a
of the
wolf
and overtakes him, and he just rips his armor out, and he just like he hulks out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
he's like Michael J. Fox in Teen Wolf. Okay.
Okay, there's the door, Justin.
Stop.
The door is right over there,
And
buddy.
he surfs the Stormfang as it's coming in, or the Rhino.
You know, I have
whichever.
I have my finger on the mute button right now. I swear to God.
I'm gonna kick him in the shin.
Okay. Notable battles of the 41st millennium. Let's go with you first, Austin. I'm going to go after you because mine kind of ties into yours.
Battle of the Fang. The
Really?
first one.
That's not the one you wrote here. You wrote
which
the
one did I write?
First War for Armageddon.
That one is also great. Yes, I was
Torn.
I was
torn
Battle
between
of
the two.
Fang is a great.
that one is great, but yeah,
I think that's honestly one of my favorite Space Marine battles books. Is Battle of the Fang. It's
so.
so
First
good.
War of Armageddon is interesting, right? Because that's when Angron. You know, we got our Angron World Eater
Yeah.
fans out there. He comes and he just lays waste to the what is it? What's the main continent?
Oh, I
again?
can't. I don't remember the name of the main continent, but yeah, I mean,
But basically, that's where all the major hive worlds are at,
Yep.
and they realize they're not going to be able to hold this planet, so they pull back to the secondary continent, you know, through the woods and whatnot. And
Right.
because Angron is Angron, he just lays waste, builds temples, you know,
Collects skulls.
that are like, you know, skyscraper hive world, you know, tall, and that allows the defenders and the Space Wolves to show up to set up the defense of the planet.
and you actually get a lot of Space Marine chapters involved.
Yes,
You get the
yes.
salamanders, you get the Space Wolves.
Yeah, there's a whole
Templars.
slew of
Yeah. And ultimately, Grey Knights end up defeating
Yes.
Angron.
Yes,
And-
they send 112 or 113
Yeah.
Grey Knight Terminators, not even Power Armor,
Wow.
it's Terminators.
Highly recommend reading The Emperor's Gift if you haven't. 'cause-
I have not read that book.
Oh, you need to read that right now because this is where this dovetails into where I like the Space Wolves because what's going on there? The Inquisition is involved in that planet too, and they're the War for Armageddon, and they're talking about
Purging the
do we
population.
purge the whole population.
Purge all the defenders.
And the Space Wolves get hint that this is what the Inquisition is going to do because they say, oh well, all these people witnessed all this chaos,
Right.
so we need to wipe all them out. The Inquisition says this, and the Space Wolves realize what they're going to do, and they take
They
their
try to hide
ships-
'em.
Well, they do. They take their ships and they put them literally in the way of the Inquisition trying to fire on them. And this causes this huge rift, and this is where I kind of got into it, which is it's called the Months of Shame, and this is where the Inquisition and the Space Wolves end up kind of going toe to toe for a long time, and kind of puffing out their chests, and we're going to go to war. And the Inquisition, the Inquisitor running all that, is kind of a moron, to be honest with you, and basically goes right to Fenris and is going to lay waste to Fenris. The Space Wolves come up to deal with him. There's some Grey Knights there as well. And at this point, Bjorn shows up as well. And there's this great scene in the Emperor's Gift where, and I don't have the exact quote here, but effectively what happens is, you know, the Inquisitor's there, and he says, well, the God Emperor of mankind has given me, you know, the authority to do this. And Bjorn is like, don't tell me about the God Emperor of mankind. I fought at his side. I was there.
That's awesome.
You know, he's like, and this guy finally realizes, oh, wait, oh my God, you know, you actually saw this guy. It's just such a great scene. And it kind of ends that whole conflict at that point. And I won't go into spoilers there, but you need to read that book if you have not. It is fantastic. In fact, I think I have it here, and I'll loan it to you before you leave.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So that was like that. The thing I dug about that was here you have these savages right? The space wolves, as they're known as savages. And they're like, we're here to protect humanity, not just wipe it out. And these people don't deserve to be wiped out. And we're sticking ourselves in the way of that in their defense.
Humanity is great defenders also.
They still very much have that nobility to them.
Risking us being wiped out. Yeah, because we're not going to put up with that. And I thought, this is heroic. Like, this is worthy of a saga. And so that's why I picked that section.
That ties in pretty well with mine. So one that stuck out to me was the battle for Montberg Spaceport. And basically the synopsis is a massive Tyranid hive fleet, Colossus, is attacking the planet Thresiax. And everyone's ordered to evacuate. The High Lords are saying, hey, the planet's doomed. Get the heck out of here, right? Well, Bran Redmaw decides instead, sends some Grey Hunters to the planet to kind of like help them out, and they actually train the populace in how to in how to fight.
That's kind of cool.
And against all odds, they actually survive.
They're like, take these stone knives,
yeah,
fight these Tyranids. You can't do that, you wimp.
Yeah, eat this meat, drink this mead.
Yeah,
here's a spear.
Well, that's the funny thing is to actually get a space marine drunk, it would literally kill a human being.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. When they talk about in the lore, like they drink this meowd or something that would kill a normal human.
But it gets a
buzz for all of like 5 minutes, and then like, need more drink.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, like they end up thwarting the Tyranids with this super small army and this militia that they trained, and then Imperial High Command at the end demands that the 6 surviving Grey Hunters be stripped of all their honors. Instead, Redmaw promotes them all to his personal honor guard.
Wolf guard.
Nice.
So it was just one of those stories that like really stuck out in my head of like, again, like the saga and like how much about defending humanity and about the nobility.
It's kind of one of the things I really like about it.
Well, that's what makes Logan Grimnar such a great character, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not just some high off, lord that doesn't care.
Right.
He does care about humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
And honor, right? Because these are all the guys that, that stood by his side and defended, Armageddon.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think at the end of the day, too, the Wolves are one of those armies, one of those in the lore that like they don't follow all the rules, but if the job is getting done and the right thing is getting done, then like it's all good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it's all about the nobility and
kind of in some ways it's the end justifies the means, but tempered, right? Whereas the Inquisition, it's like, the end justifies the means. We're going to wipe out this planet.
But like you said, tempered, but with a bunch of crazy, savage dudes that are lopping your heads off. Yeah.
Dichotomy.
Well, that's. I feel like Space Wolves everybody says they're really crazy savages, but, even Horus saw it, right? It's like going, I feel like this is this is a show.
A lot of this is an act.
Yeah, exactly. It's an act. He's acting like a drunkard, like a blowhard, but
it certainly was with Russ. And I think the greatest of the wolves, the greatest of the space wolves who become wolf lords, like embody that a bit too, right? They're more civilized than they really let on. I think when you go from a neophyte all through the thing, as you age,
right,
like you're tempering some of that craziness that you've grown up with, and those who can make it through that are kind of forged into mini Russes. I
think it comes too from like the hardy Fenrisian people, that, like where the stock comes from, because they're kind of in that like that real small pack already, right? Like a small band of guys that are going around and they're very loyal to each other.
Yeah.
So it's only going to kind of.
Well, what's interesting is there's a lot of in the Horus Heresy series. There's one particular wolf that is left. Bjorn, for that matter, who when he leaves his pack, like another guy's put in charge of his pack, and when he comes back,
he's losing connection with that pack because he's no longer part of the pack, even though it's his pack, because somebody's
this guy's
new
supposed
alpha
to be temporary, but he's supposed to be temporary.
Yeah, that's exactly the whole alpha.
The new alpha is in charge, and the pack is already kind of more
steering towards
that new alpha, basically.
Yeah. And so when he comes, like everybody's like great, happy to see him, but he's like, I don't really belong here anymore.
There's you're starting to lose that connection.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I thought it's a really interesting way to draw it. And until you said the alpha, like I didn't kind of really think about that, but that's a really good comparison. Before we take a break, let's talk about the model range real quick. for these. And usually what we do is we go through, we pick 2 of the model ranges that we like and 1 kind of HQ or character model that we like. And so I'll start. And I'm going to say, and this can be from either the plastic model range or the resin Forge World model
could be whatever,
range.
right?
As I was looking at all this, like I was heavily leaning towards those Space Wolf Terminators, which just blew my mind when they first came out.
Oh, which ones?
The regular plastic
The plastic
ones.
ones, yes.
But then I came across the Forge World Space Wolf Terminator conversion kits.
And you're talking about the original kit that came out, or the new one
So what I'm talking about now is the new
for Heresy?
Forge World. Yeah, Space Wolf Terminator conversion kits are amazing looking. Absolutely amazing looking. Like the detail on those guys. They take the plastic models to a whole new level.
Dude, I
put
love
these on there.
I absolutely love them. I love Terminators. I have a ton of Terminators.
I'm a huge fan of Terminators
I
too.
cannot get them to work on the table, which is sad.
Really?
I mean, they like you said, guys, that hit earlier, it's just like they do okay, but like
Bolter Fire brings them down.
yeah, it's just
They're not
like,
Blightlord Terminators.
Yeah, I mean, you need a lot of them. They're really expensive, and to kit them out, it's just like it just really just inflates the price of those guys, and it just.
But I love
sad,
these models.
But, those models are fantastic. The detail on them is just ridiculous. The hair,
and
the
this
Crux
is where
Terminus.
the hair looks good on these guys.
Yes.
Like there's not a silly.
He's not
head
talking about
amongst
the
them.
Varangier or Varangar
No.
Terminators from
Okay.
Forge World with the
this
weird
is just
knot
the
work.
conversion kits.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is what I'm talking about. And if you haven't taken a look at them, you should because they're
I'll
incredible.
bring him next time.
Okay.
Austin, what was your first choice?
My first choice was actually Logan Grimnar, not on the sled, the actual individual
Even
model.
though every
himself.
time he plays, he uses a sled.
I do not. Oh, actually, every time I've played you, yes, I have used the sled. Well, the first time was Index, and I was like going, this was just, you couldn't use it in 7th edition. So I'm like, I'm going to use it. I've never used this.
Right.
I'm using it against Justin.
He did really well for you.
And he did some work.
Yep.
He chopped some people up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, him.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at that model, the actual Logan himself,
He's a good sculpt.
he is beautiful.
Can you buy that separate, or does
You
it
can't.
come
You
with
have to buy it.
You have to buy the whole kit.
You have to
and
buy
he's
the whole
separate.
kit, yes.
And he just sits in the.
Yeah, you can just glue them
Okay.
on, but I
Most
magnetized
people
it
just
and
pop them off, right?
I magnetized the sled and I magnetized a 40 mil base to put them in
works.
there.
Cool. All right, Justin.
I had to go for that new Ulrich the Slayer sculpt.
Yeah.
Ulrich is nice.
I love that out of the whole like range of the new wolves. Like I mean, he's not very like action packed, but just he's
Very
just
stoic.
very stoic, and like it matches his lore really well because he's super venerable and ancient, you know. And it's just one of those models that I definitely will get to painting that one day when I go back to the wolves.
Well, since you guys went to the characters, I'm going to take mine, which was Njal Stormcaller in Terminator armor, not the old one. Not the old guy.
The old one's, he's still a good sculpt though too.
He's still
in
a
power
pretty
armor,
decent sculpt.
but yeah,
He's
yes.
very
So-
one-dimensional. His
Yes.
arms are out to the side. He's very flat because that was what
Right.
they were capable of.
Right.
But that Terminator Njal Stormcaller
Yeah, he's nice. Yeah.
is
It's-
a fantastic looking model.
With a little bit of work, you can really get that dynamic pose. Because right now he's just kind of holding his staff out. And
I kind of
don't
like that. Like that was the original Typhus is in a similar kind of pose, and I think the original Typhus was one of my favorite models of all time. I don't mind his like static pose. I think he looks like
I love that model. I just don't like that pose, and I need to get him and I need to chop him up.
Oh, okay.
Hey, well, it's going to be in Finecast, so it'll be easy
Yes.
for you.
Yeah, that metal one was like, ooh,
Yeah,
the shivers.
Yeah. All right, Austin. You're next up.
Oh, again, okay. I gotta say, the good old infantry kit.
Yep.
Just
we kind of touched on this.
yeah, we
earlier.
touched on that earlier, but there's just so much good stuff there. Banners, little wolf pelts, runes,
which can all be
bones.
added to vehicles as well.
It can be added to
right?
vehicles. It can be added to other ranges. It can be added to like the 30K stuff. And I know there's people out there.
Mullins.
Yeah, Jason Mullins. He's the one
Yeah.
that has like the old 30K,
Yeah.
and he convert. I'm sure that's what he
Before
used.
they had the stuff.
Before
he
they
was
had the
using
stuff,
all
yes.
that. Mm-hmm.
And so it's just
Take the
awesome
heads
kit.
with the barber tat mustaches and throw them in the garbage, and you're fine.
I'm gonna create a whole unit with just those guys.
I'm going to put them on my Space Marine Scouts.
As long as they have like
What's worse, the original Space Marine Scout heads or those heads?
man.
Oh, have
That's
you
a
seen the
tough
Space
one.
Marine Scout heads for this one? They come with Space Marine Scout heads on these guys, and
They're pretty awful,
They're
too.
pretty bad too.
They're horrible. Yeah, because they literally took that CAD design and then just like added like some mutton chops to it and like.
They have a Mohawk guy that's pretty decent.
I will say, I think that this was, and I talked about this in 5th edition when this kit came out. Like this was a leap forward for GW in plastics. Like we had not seen.
They'd never seen anything like that before.
It blew my mind. It was so good. So
yeah, definitely, we had not seen a kit with the sheer amount of bits. And that
but
was,
not just that. I'm talking about the details.
Yes, the details
on
fantastic.
The armors. Like there was not anything like that in plastic.
I'm trying to think.
before.
Well, no, because Dark Eldar came out right before that. I'm just a fanboy. I'm going to say Dark Eldar plastics because I think they were before the Wolf release. Who knows?
I'll tell you though, we had not seen Space Wolf armor like that.
Yeah,
or we had not.
And the level of detail,
Space Marine armor like that. Then Blood Angels came out later, and they got
the same treatment.
Treatment, and it just made a world of difference.
Yeah.
I was jealous of those, so I think that's a good call. Justin, what was your next?
So I'm an old grognard. My favorite Space Wolf models ever are those old Jess Goodwin sculpts that we were talking about of the Scouts.
You just love everything Jess Goodwin.
Pretty much. But those models,
I don't think we've gone through one of these without you mentioning Jess Goodwin.
I don't think
which
so.
is fine. I'm not.
Not picking
on that.
No, he is.
You know the models I'm talking about.
I know exactly. I have
They're
some
good.
of them, and I absolutely love those ones. I mean, it had like little grenade packs and just the faces and the sculpts.
Champion had I think the Champion had like a mohawk and just. I mean, at the time they were that old pewter,
right?
Kind of mono flat.
Yeah, flat pose. Yes.
But the detail was just it was there. So yeah, I got to go with those models. OG.
The great thing about them being flat like that, though, is if Jaws of the World Wolf was used against you and you had them all turned sideways, maybe the line would miss them.
Dodge the beam.
I'm pretty sure you're not using Jaws of the World Wolf against Wolf Scouts.
No, they just happen to get in the way. My last one would be the Space Wolf Contemptor Dreadnought, which I just think is awesome. And you have, I don't know if you used that one for your conversion to Bjorn, but you could use this guy for that as well.
I have that, and I do plan on adding
beautiful.
that. Yes, it's a great sculpt on that. So much detail, flavor on there, the rune work, and it's just awesome.
Yeah. Austin, yours?
And then my last one is just that new Dreadnought kit.
Once again,
the boxy one. Yeah, that the Mark IV Dreadnought, Venerable Dreadnought with the shield, the Great Axe, or they can go the Wolf Claws. You can build all sorts of different, builds with that, and just the level of detail in there is just amazing.
Yeah.
The Bjorn model you can build out of that.
You can build the Bjorn,
the plate, on his front armor with that of him battling like a Kraken or something like that. Just the detail level is insane on that. Yeah.
And Justin, you don't have a third one, so I'm assuming it's a Dark Eldar of some kind.
The Cabalite kit.
The Cabalite kit.
Well, it says right here in the show note, each host picks
trophies for your Space Wolves.
Yeah, each host picks 2 favorite models from the available line,
and then an HQ.
Oh, where does it say that? I missed that part. If I did pick a third one, it would definitely.
It used to be in there.
I added the Dreadnought. Yeah, so
my fault.
Yeah. I added the Dreadnought initially, the Dreadnought kit, mostly for the Bjorn resculpt.
Yeah,
because I'm not a fan of the Murder, Death, Fang, Kill bot.
Yeah, I was.
I'm not a big fan of the murder.
But the Bjorn is awesome.
All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We'll continue with our Show Force episode. Be right back.
Hey, this is Big Nasty B from Life After the Cover Safe, and I'm at a mall talking to strangers about Table War. Table War develops some of the most innovative products for the miniature wargaming and hobby industry.
And I develop pictures.
That's great. They develop things like the Fat Mat.
Who's Matt? And why is he so fat?
Well, first off, Matt is not a person. The Fat Mat is a tabletop gaming surface, and with over 40 different designs, Table War's Fat Mat has become a community standard.
I got a Surface Pro. It's like 10 inches. By the way, I'm meeting my friend Simban. Do you know what that is?
No, but I do want to tell you about the Table War Tower case line.
Oh man, towers are so huge.
Well, it's not that kind of tower. It's the original modular, all-in-one display, storage, and transport system for all your tabletop miniatures.
Wow, you're really smart. What's your relationship status?
Well, it's complicated, but you know what isn't complicated?
Chili dogs.
This is true, but also the Macro Mat.
Oh, geez, not that guy again.
The Macro Mat is a one-of-a-kind, innovative photography backdrop, perfect for collectibles, hobby miniatures, and small works of art. Its durability, portability, and functionality in one inexpensive product.
I wasn't paying attention to what you just said, but do you validate parking?
No, I do not. But if you want more information, head over to tablewar.com and check them out.
Table War! All right, and we're back. We're continuing Show of Force, Space Wolves. And next we're going to talk about units of the Codex that we either like to see on the table, would likely play with on the table, or just too cool to pass up. So I'll go ahead and start. And I'm going to start off with Thunderwolf Cav. We talked about him.
Yeah, that's
Justin, you don't particularly like the look of them.
Not a fan of the models, but absolutely would totally forego that with how good they are in the game.
In fact,
it would make me like them.
You do the Kiefer take 3 of them.
I would. 3 units of 5.
3 units of
3 Wolf Lords.
That's my entire army.
All with Storm Shields.
And Thunder Hammers.
I've shown you the power of the Storm Shields.
Yes.
And Predators.
And Predators, yes.
Yep. The Thunderwolf Cav, I'm kind of with you on the models, but I would use the models from
Dandy.
From Wargamma. I just think they're meatier.
They are beefier. Yes.
Yeah.
There's another company.
They're not complete. They're just the wolf part and the leg.
Yeah.
You need like the torso and all that.
There's another company that makes.
Yeah, there's Raging Heroes, and they make, and also it's more mechanical.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
They look really neat though.
Yeah.
And I've thought about incorporating some of those guys into my army.
I think the Wargamma ones also have some bionics associated with some of the
those
arms.
ones are like more bulky.
Yeah.
Whereas the Raging Hero ones are a little bit leaner, but they're also just as big.
I like the bulky thing.
Yeah.
That's what works for me. Anyway, this is a unit that is just so good. Like it's really, really good.
Yeah, when Austin used them against me, man, it was just the shields on them and the thunder hammers. Like you put a 3-up invul on those models.
How many wounds
with the multiple wounds?
3 wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good.
That's no joke. I mean, when I was playing Ian at Adepticon, and he was running Space Wolves, and he had those guys kind of in the back running behind things, and I'm like, "What are you doing with those?
Push them forward."
You run those right up the middle into my face, and then I have to deal with those, and everything else is
yeah, it's all about kind of threat saturation with those guys. I don't ever take them in big units. I take them in multiple small units, and I'm like going, "Yeah, you got that one unit, but." This one is basically untouched, and it's gonna mulch your face. Yeah.
And then backed up by Wolf Lords on
Wolf
mounts.
Lords and the battle Wolf Guard battle leaders. So you're re-rolling ones to hit, and you're re-rolling ones to wound.
Brutal.
That just makes
clutch.
it
sprinkle in a thunder hammer here or there,
or everywhere,
or
everywhere.
All of them. Yeah,
as many as you can take. Yep.
Yeah, it's one of those units that truly embodies the assault unit's assault. And that's all you do with this unit. You just
there's not much subtlety to this unit at all.
It's one of the things I like about it. Next up, Austin.
Well, I also I'm going to go with my Wolfen because that is
Can we all agree one of our choices for each of us was Thunderwolf?
Yeah, we'll speed through that.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody agreed that was a unit that is, whether you like Space Marines riding wolves or not, if you're playing Space Wolves, that's a unit you're going to consider.
And it kind of goes back to, like Carl used to always talk about Chaos Marines and how, like, what made them so interesting is that you have your fundamental Marine bodies, but you have Demon Princes and things like these multi-wound models that add that interest, and that it really sets them apart as being different.
Agreed.
I mean, other chapters don't really have anything like this.
Nobody has a comparable unit to this
that I can think of. I mean, Salamanders should have big salamanders they ride.
What about
cool.
the demons?
Don't give them ideas.
What? That sounds amazing.
Minotaurs could be riding Minotaurs, Like, so.
No. What about demons and the those blood crushers?
What I mean,
but Marines.
Oh, for
Marines.
Marines. Okay,
yeah.
Marines don't have anything like that.
Definitely, it's just such a clutch unit for making them.
The closest would be bikes.
Yeah, they're just.
But they can take bikes too. Space Wolves can take bikes too. So, okay. So we've all agreed one of our choices across all of us, Thunderwolf Cav. Let's go on, Austin.
Wolfen, because they're such. Yeah, I mean, okay. At first, I did not like the models. They looked really cartoony.
Okay, the original models.
The original models are cool.
bad. I don't like. You like the original
I
over the new ones?
Them, but the new ones are like they're just. I mean, they are buffed out. They've been in the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, and
what's
these
wrong
guys,
with that?
They're supposed to be. I mean, according to those like stories about Bran Redmaw.
And they are raged out.
Bran Redmaw, the what's his name that went into the Eye of Terror?
And they got their power armor shorts on. And
Yeah, they got their power armor shirts on. Oh man, I have nightmares about building those guys though.
Really?
The legs. There's like a million pieces in each one of those legs. I think can't remember. I think it was like 13 pieces. I think.
Wow.
To build just the from the torso down.
Yeah, I dig the sculpts. I mean, the concept of them is a little on the cartoony side, but like
they are cartoony.
Sculpt level though, they're awesome.
In game, oh wow.
Yeah.
They're that good, huh?
They bring the hurt. They buff the guys around you. When they hit like a Mack truck.
What's the lore on that again? For the reason like why they buff everybody?
Yeah, why does it inspire or help other people around?
It's the warp. I don't know. It just it like
Space
activates
magic.
the Canis helix in the guys around him, and
that makes sense.
And then
right?
the blood claws around him are even more susceptible
because like the pheromones they give off.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's call it that.
Very cool.
That is actually that works. Yeah, these guys look like Rob Liefeld drew their arms. I mean, their arms are huge.
They've been in the gym.
They definitely have. I mean, we talked about like Old Man Logan, like Wolverine. These guys, you can tell they definitely looked at like Sam Keith era Wolverine drawings of just roided out Wolverine and just took it home.
Yeah.
They're high quality sculpts, man.
Those
I dig
shields
them.
are really cool.
Oh, those shields are awesome. They're bigger. The lore on them is really cool too. You know, when they first found them, you know, these guys are like all like, you know, the regular Space Marine weapons, or which are already huge, are like toys in these guys' hands. They can't operate them. They can't operate bolt guns.
That's hilarious.
And then like, you know, they get told, I can't remember which Iron Priest gets told to arm them out, but they go into this one relic hall and it's like going, you know, all the Space Wolves think these things are just decorations. These guys look at it, grab these things off the wall, and they're naturals. They're just spinning around these giant axes like people thought were just for ceremony, and they're just like a whirlwind of death. And they're like going, I think we got something here.
Sweet.
All right. So they perform well. Expensive
Oh, yeah.
On the table?
They're reasonable because, I mean, their armor save is not that great, but that's why you give them.
They have a 4-up, right?
They have a 4-up, but that's why you give them storm shields.
Oh,
interesting.
We're seeing
a theme here.
A theme.
And can all of them take a storm?
Oh, they can all take storm shields.
Wow.
Storm shields and thunder hammers. And
Nice.
what's great about them, even after they die, they can attack again.
So here's the next thing I'd ask is how do you get them into combat? Like, do they need a delivery mechanism or?
They're pretty fast.
They're pretty fast, and
you run your Thunderwolf.
I wrote my Thunderwolf right next to him.
So people are dealing with the Thunderwolf Cav.
You got to pick your poison. You know,
Sure.
when you play against me, it's like, you know, it's like, what are you going to shoot at? Are you going to shoot at the 3 packs of Thunderwolves and the heroes running after them, or are you going to shoot the wolf?
It's all just, as you said, about saturating your target with poor choices.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Cool. Justin,
So I went for I've broken record this episode, but Wolf Scouts. I love like the concept of them. I love not the new models, but I would hunt down some of the older ones. But I love when I play. I love having those small disruption units that you can like, even though it's only 5 dudes. Those 5 dudes can get you line breaker. They can grab objectives in the backfield and just be a nuisance. You know, you can give these guys a melta-gun. You can give them a plasma gun. You know,
plasma pistols, power axes.
Yep.
You can deck these guys out.
And for not many points, I mean, they're cheap. You can make a really inexpensive battalion out of 3 units of them and a couple characters for not many points.
Well, they're not troops, right?
Oh, that's right. They're elites now.
They're
huh?
elites.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
That's right. So you could do one of the Vanguard or whatever the formation is that gets you nets you the +1 CP. But I don't know. I love the idea of taking just 3. I envision when I go back to my Space Wolves of having 3 units of these guys just causing grief behind the enemy lines, and then having the Thunderwolves kind of push in the front. You know, kind of like that hammer, hammer and anvil, or that hammer and storm shield effect.
Yeah.
We see a theme here.
So my next choice was straight up Space Wolf Terminators. 1, because I just love the design of them.
They
I think they're
killed
cool.
that new design. Yeah.
2, because I just love Terminators, much like you, Austin. I just think they're cool. I think they're fun to paint. I always like putting Terminators on the table. One of the things that I was realizing is they've kind of done away with in 8th edition this whole we don't like to teleport kind of situation. They used to just
they used
come
to
down
not
and
teleport.
drop pods.
Yeah,
and it seems like they've gotten over their fear of teleportation.
They took them through some simulations.
Yeah. Maybe having to deal and fight Magnus himself has kind of changed or altered their perspective. I don't know. But I recognize that there are units that maybe can accomplish what the Terminators do a little bit better, like Thunderwolf Cav, kind of fill that niche. But I just love them, and it's always been a thing for
I
me.
used to love playing in seventh edition. There was Champions of Fenris Codex Supplement.
Yeah.
And they had a formation in there. It was Arjax Shield Breakers or something like that. And it was Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, Terminators, Land Raider.
Yeah.
And you would roll that thing up there, and it was just so cool.
And if I can just say, a Land Raider, like for Space Wolves, that's got like shields and stuff from the Space Wolves and the
you got to have the
fetishes and
Forge
stuff
World
on it,
doors.
looks so awesome. I mean, it just looks awesome. So I mean, that whole I'm a huge fan of Land Raiders with.
Next time I'll bring my
Terminators.
Spartan with all the Forge World stuff on
Spartan
there.
is insane. Yeah, I've seen it. It's not yours specifically, but I've seen it done. It's
No, I'll bring mine. You'll like
nice.
it.
All right,
It is.
Nice.
All right. So for me, Terminators. Austin,
Oh, I went with Thunderwolf Cav, but I'll go for the hero.
we've already covered that.
Yeah, we'll cover that. We've covered
Move
that.
on to your HQ. Yeah.
I went with Logan again. I absolutely love that sculpt, and he is he's a force multiplier too.
Notice he's named Old Man Logan too.
He is.
How convenient.
Yes, Santa Logan is a thing.
Yeah,
for me.
better than Old Man Santa.
That's true.
We'll take Logan.
All right.
But in game wise, I mean, Arjack's probably better,
yeah.
but I just love the look of the new plastic sculpt. I mean, you really need to take a close look at that guy. He's dialed in.
Yeah. I mean,
There are times where I just like the sculpt of something so much that I like to put it on the table and play with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
even if it's maybe not the best unit
no,
or
definitely
something, but
not,
there
yeah.
are times where I'm just like, I really like the way this looks. I'm kind of doing it right now with my Minotaurs. There's like the Chaplain guy who's pretty good, but it's like, well, am I really going to use,
but
it
at
just
least
looks so cool.
8th edition offers you that, like, a unit might be a quote unquote stinker, but it's still going to have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Right,
It's
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 still
not
gonna
going
be
to
okay.
Do something
Yeah.
with it.
You can do something,
There's just
yeah.
better choices. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Justin.
I had to go for, after having the pleasure of playing Austin a few games, I had to go for a Thunderwolf Lord.
Yep.
I would hands down take 3 of these in every army.
Yep.
Probably 2. But they're just really, really effective. And when you couple the sagas in there, a lot of the relics that we took a look at, they're just choppy. They're deadly.
Yeah.
And the force multiplier too, because they're allowing rerolls of 1s too, right?
Attacks. And that's
Right.
why you take a battle leader with him, so
Right.
he can reroll the ones on the wounds.
Boom, like the lieutenant. Yeah.
Yeah, so you you stack the buffs, and then it
Yep.
really just takes them to the next level.
Yep. Because when we were playing that last game, man, I was amazed at how effective they were at getting through the Talos. You drop those 2 Talos, 2 out of 3 pretty quick, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have taken 6. Yeah, they're choppy. They're deadly.
For me, next was Njal Stormcaller. We talked about how he looks. I'm just fascinated with how he looks. Plus, he's a psyker. I like playing with psychers. I think he's not too shabby of one. He's not the best, but he's not too bad. He has, he has an ability which allows him to add 1 to deny the witch tests. He has an ability
Yes.
which allows him to add 1 to castings, which is always good. And I mean, wearing runic Terminator armor, he has a 4+ invuln. Plus, he's just awesome looking. He can cast 2 psychic powers per turn.
Yep.
So he has access to the Space Wolf psychic abilities, which are not too shabby either. So yeah, I mean, all around, if you're going to run a psyker, I like him as a psyker. I think he's pretty cool.
No, definitely. I mean, I don't have them, and I only have 1 Rune
Psychic
Priest.
Rune Priest, yeah.
I only have 1 Rune Priest because they were never really that great, and I just never painted multiple of them up.
Yeah.
But later on we'll talk about some of the stratagems, and it's like, I might want to add 3 psychers and really ramp up, my psychic phase. And so, yeah, definitely I'm going to have to track 1 down and add another one in like power armor, Terminator armor, something like that.
I am looking forward to you and I playing a thematic game of Zinch.
Dude,
versus
that needs to
Space
happen.
Wolves. It looks so good too. So we need to set that up.
Yeah,
Do
definitely.
we know another Zinch player? Because I could dust off my wolves. We could do like a team game. That could
That
be
would
fun.
be fun. And we've got Jody
Plays demons.
plays demons. So we could do something big. That'd be fun. That would be really fun. We should set that up.
I could paint that ruin up as the centerpiece of the board
Nice.
on the cobblestone with
That would be
that new
super good.
beautiful tabletopper you have there.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna do it.
All right.
Okay. Next, I think. Oh, wait, actually, that's it.
I think we're
That's
good.
it. We're good. So let's move on, and let's talk about this army in competition. Now, this codex is fairly new. And Justin, we were talking about this during the break, and you said, "What'd you say about it?"
Yeah, I mean, because I do a pretty decent job of keeping my finger on the pulse of the competitive community, just out of because I don't really watch many sports. It's kind of like 40K is my sport for the most part, and I just haven't really heard much about wolves doing any great sagas, any great feats.
But likewise, I haven't heard they're sucking, right? Like, it feels like they're gonna wind up in the middle of the pack area.
I feel like they're kind of middling. They're not overpowered. There's no instant win type of button, right? Where you can just take this set army and you're instantly going to do well. You know?
I think at the end of the day, it's still a Marine army.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Very
I
much so.
feel like Marines are just suffering a little bit right now from some of the Xenos armies out there that are they have that torrent of fire and they have so many more bodies on the field, right? Because in 8th edition, it's so much easier to get wounds through, with the way the chart changed. It's, I never really hear too many, all Marine armies, crushing it. They always have Guard allied in or
Knights.
and a Knight.
Yeah, Knights are...
It seems to be the sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I do believe that you could build a really effective...
Punch you in the face
detachment within an Imperial Soup army out of this, especially with the hitting on 2s in combat when they're charged or be charged with all the rerolls. It could be a thing. I just haven't heard of it being a thing.
So let's talk a little bit about stratagems then. Because stratagems are kind of the thing that make the army now. We did away with formations,
gives the flavor.
Right? It gives it some flavor. I really like their 8th edition approach to this. One of the ones I was looking at, which is just kind of a very, very simple one, was the Talisman Shield. And we were just talking about Psychers a minute ago, but one of the great things about the stratagem, and I think it's one command point to use, allows any model to... I don't know if it's any model or any infantry model. Character model, okay, to effectively deny the witch as if he were a psyker.
It's pretty cool.
Which I'm not going to say that's hugely swingy in one particular way. I mean, it is only one command point, but that can be clutch in some very specific cases. And I just think that's kind of cool. And it's also in keeping kind of thematically, I feel, with this, where in some cases they
believe so much in their runes that it protects them.
Yeah, exactly. It protects them, and in particular, who are their chief rival, the Thousand Sons, and there's stories of them pushing through and overcoming, these
lightning storm or whatever.
this stuff that's thrown at them to kind of deal with it. I think it thematically it's kind of cool.
I like the cunning of the wolf. One command point. You could bring a big unit of wolf in and deep strike them in.
Well, I was thinking along those lines of bringing in one
Does that
unit.
allow them to deep strike? Is that what
Basically.
it does? Okay.
It allows them to basically outflank, right?
Okay.
They could just come in from the table edge anywhere.
Nice.
9 inches away. But
remember I talked about how do you deliver them?
Yeah. Well, there's also...
one command point.
I mean, you look at some of the... Because the new codex brought in the Primaris units.
That's true.
And I'm thinking, aggressors.
Aggressors coming in would be pretty
even better.
That is
Hellblasters.
And Hellblasters coming in from the side just to just rip the guts out of your, backfield armor or whatever,
Speaking of that, we didn't really talk about the they came out with Space Wolf.
We did not talk about that, yeah.
Conversion kits that you can use with the Primaris.
With Primaris, right?
It's basically shoulder guards and little dangles and different fetishes and maybe a different
couple extra heads too, I think, right?
Yeah, so it's really not that much, but the integration of Primaris Marines into the Space Wolves,
it's an interesting integration of Primaris too, because Primaris are supposed to be kind of the next generation.
Yeah, it was supposed to fix the Canis Helix flaw, and we found out in I can't remember which book, but basically, no, these guys are still susceptible. It's basically,
I think they're a little less susceptible, right?
Yeah, they're less susceptible, but they can still, be affected. It's just encoded in the Canis Helix.
Yeah.
It's an integral part.
Imagine what Wolf and they'll turn into.
That is, next edition.
There you go.
And one you used against me, Austin, which is really awesome. And only in death does duty end.
Yes.
2 command points to be able to attack again with that choppy
character.
character.
Yeah. It's like, I killed him. Oh, but I didn't.
Hang on a second.
Robert used that against me with his custodes. Any stratagem like that allows you to attack twice is devastating, especially on a buffed up character.
Any thoughts on sagas like warlord that are effectively their warlord traits, right? Like anything that you're using in particular there? Or is that usually defined by a character you're running?
It depends. The named characters have set
they're
sagas,
preset.
you know, and so
I'm talking about you specifically.
Yeah, no, I've you can use whatever saga, but unless you're using one of the named characters, and
depending on your opponent, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can pick and choose.
Have you found anything that works particularly well for you?
The saga of the Wolfkin,
Okay.
yeah, which allows the Space Wolf beasts and characters to make one additional attack on a successful charge.
That is not
so
bad at all.
you throw that. So
God.
and then you have the Wolfenstone relic.
So you said you take 2 relics typically. You pay command points.
I pay command points, and I
take another relic.
I make my Wolf Lord ultra choppy.
Yeah, that
and
you
buffy.
give him the Wolfenstone.
I give
right?
I give one the Wolfenstone, and I give the other guy Black Death.
So what does a Wolfenstone do?
So basically, it's the Curse of the Wolfen, but in a relic form.
+1 attack on
so
nearby.
+1 attack, and you can. This one is just the +1 to attack.
But it can't stack with the Wolfen.
It cannot stack with the actual Wolfen buff.
But it just allows you to get that Thunderwolf unit away from the Wolfen and still be choppier.
Be choppy, yes. Even like if they outrun the Wolfen,
which they probably will, right?
Which they will, yes.
Cool. Choppy. I'm getting excited about Space Wolves. Darn it all! I'm going to be dusting my mind.
I think it was part of talking about our team game.
I know my Deepkin are never going to get. I'm never going to get back to them.
All right. So, interestingly, you brought up you've been talking about stories in particular around Blackmane and stuff. One of the first omnibuses, I remember when I first started in 40K, I was reading everything I could find from Black Library. And at that time, it's a fairly limited selection. I mean, like there wasn't what there is today.
Oh man, it's just crazy.
I remember
the
reading
books that they're putting out nowadays.
I was reading the Soul Drinkers omnibus, which
Yeah.
I was reading
Spider Marines,
the Space Wolf omnibus, and the Space Wolf omnibus, it came across as kind of corny in some places to me at that time. But here's the thing: I mean, there's been an evolution of that fiction. Like the fiction now has stricter standards. They're adhering to things. They've developed this shared world that they're writing.
They're talking to the authors are talking to each other.
Oh, yeah,
editorial
heavily.
Team, and like they're making things.
They have an editorial team.
Yeah, well, they're making things mesh, right?
Yeah,
and it's flowing together well. It's interlocking stories, and it's really cool. And we were talking this earlier during the break about just different perspectives. From the same scene in different books, but like they're just told from a different perspective, and I think that's just so cool. Right.
I totally agree. So that said, there is a ton of Space Wolf fiction out there now from Black Library, whether they are partial to the story, such as The Emperor's Gift, which I told you about. That's not the focus. The focus is Grey Knights in that, but they have a heavy part in it. Whether it is something completely about them, say Prospero Burns, or
such a great book,
A Thousand Suns, right? You see it kind of from both perspectives. We were talking about that earlier, or Wolfsbane from the Horus Heresy as well, which I think is a fantastic novel for the Space Wolves. There is quite a bit there beyond just the omnibus, which you can still get, by the way. So here's a few other things that are out there. And again, this only touches on full-length novels. This isn't even just like the short stories that they're putting out. But there's Ashes of Prospero. There's Leman Russ, the Great Wolf. There's Fenris. I mean, Tales from Warzone Fenris, which is a collection of short stories all about
Ragnar Blackmane.
Mm-hmm. Legacy of Russ. The Eye of Terra, which is a Horus Heresy compilation. It has some stuff in there. Space Wolves. War of the Fang, which includes Battle of the Fang now, but has like another short story attached to it, which I haven't read that.
I have not read that either.
Which is called Hunt for Magnus, actually, is the short story. So that sounds...
I'd be interested to read the Arjak Rockfist. I've always liked that character. Just this big, burly, oofy dude. I'm sure that could be... He's just smashing everything.
He was a blacksmith
Of course he was.
Oh, in his life prior to becoming a space wolf.
Prior to becoming Thor.
Becoming Thor, yeah, and his super hammer.
Yeah.
Faux hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That thing is gnarly. But his rules are so good.
Nice.
In 8th edition.
He's a great sculpt too.
He's a great sculpt.
Yeah.
His hammer. Oh man, how many times I've broken that darn thing?
Oh really?
Fail cast.
Because it's fine cast, and his arm is hanging out behind him, and it
so it's
extends
fragile,
out, and so it's
You
just a
knock it and
thin
it breaks.
fine cast piece that's sticking out. It's just I've broken that thing I don't know how many times.
Yeah. And then Blood of Asselheim by Chris Rate. We were just talking about how Chris Rate's a great author as well. The other person I was trying to talk about before that I couldn't remember was Gav.
Oh,
Gav
yeah.
Thorpe.
How could we forget
Gav
Gav?
Thorpe, for me, when he's good, he's really good. When he's bad, I can't take it. He's hit or miss for me, much like Graham. But when they're good, man, they are on it, you know. So, I mean, there is a lot of Black Library books out there right now that you can go through. There's also some supporting supplements that have come out. You have some right here. In particular, towards the end of 7th edition, we had the Warzone Fenris stuff with Curse of the Wolfen.
Wrath of Magnus.
I mean, the Wrath of Magnus one was more focused towards Thousand Suns, but definitely heavily, you know,
involving Space Wolves. Yeah, and the story. And poor Egil Ironwolf. Oh, man, his story. So sad. Shoots a las cannon at Magnus. Magnus freezes said las beam, teleports or kinetically moves Engel in front of that las beam, and then releases the las beam and basically vaporizes the Wolf Lord
with his own shot.
With his own shot. I'm just like, oh man, that's a rough way to go.
You know, that was a quick in the 41st millennium. That's a quick, clean death.
He didn't even see it coming.
He didn't. I'm sure he saw it coming because I'm sure Magnus did it in slow mo. Yeah. He's like, "This is what's coming. You just shot yourself."
Sanctus Reach, Stormclaw.
Yeah.
Also
introducing the Crom Dragon Gaze.
Yeah, he's a great model.
He's a great model. Actually,
I haven't even seen that yet.
You have not seen that?
I need to take a look.
I took him and I converted him into my Ragnar because
he's
old
a great figure.
3rd edition sculpt of Ragnar Blackmane.
Wasn't working for you?
That was
not working for you.
That was not doing it for me.
In terms of Forge World support, there's actually quite a bit. And usually, you know, you kind of bump into a lot of 30K stuff here. And this is no exception. So, first of all, the Doom of Mimiara, Imperial Armor book Doom of Mimiara, which I don't think is available anymore because the rules are not updated.
Right.
But if you can get your hands on it, again, not the strongest story they've done for an Imperial Armor book, so I wouldn't say it's representative of the best of Imperial Armor.
But lots of great templates that I know Jeff loves.
There is some cool stuff in there, though. There is, a bunch of Space Wolf activity, as I talk about Bran Redmaw. There's rules for him for 7th edition, unfortunately. I don't think they even have rules for him anymore because there's no model for him.
There's no model for him. Like he's just basically mentioned in like the lore sections. You know, like
a shame.
Here's his great company. This is what it does, and that's basically it.
Really a shame because it could be just a friggin'. You know, who knows? Like we've said, once they complete all of the codexes,
they could revisit.
No, it's definitely something they can go back and revisit.
Yeah.
And, hopefully they do.
Yeah, you have Horus Heresy Book 7 Inferno, obviously, that covers them from the Horus Heresy angle. We've done coverage on that, so you can listen to that. You have the Space Wolves Legion Grey Slayer Upgrade Pack 1. You have Space Wolf Legion Strike Force. You have, which is just kind of all these things packaged as one click for your convenience, Jeff.
Sweet.
Jeff Hummel, that one's for you. And then, because I know how much you love Space Wolves and one-click
and
bundles.
one-clicks. Yeah, who doesn't? Time is a commodity.
You have the Mark IV shoulder pads. You have the Demos Rhino door sets 1 and 2. They actually have different sets for them, which is really one I think has axes and I think the other one doesn't.
Right, it's like a diamond one, I think.
Yeah,
with the wolf head on there.
Yeah, you have the Rhino doors and front plate. You have the Contemptor Dreadnought, which I talked about before, which is just amazing. The Space Wolf specific Legion one is awesome looking. But you also just have a regular Contemptor Dreadnought with a Power Claw and heavy bolter.
I'm really looking forward to when they do the Leviathan one for Space Wolf. Oh,
that should be amazing.
Those things are so good, man.
You could probably dress one. Anyway.
You totally could.
There's enough bits out there, especially with the Wolfen kit, with all the shields and stuff
and
that.
There's green stuff rollers that have like press molds that have the fur texture.
Yeah.
There's stencils out there for scroll work. I've got some of that.
Nice.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing that thing.
You have the Legion Praetor. You have the Wolfkin of Russ, which are just basically his wolves,
for Layman Russ's
protect
wolves.
him. You have the Terminator conversion set, and this is the one I was talking about that is just amazing looking. You have the Legion Grayslayer's Close Combat Squad, the chapter Repulsor doors for when you buy your Repulsor. You have Land Raider doors. You have Grayslayer's Upgrade Pack 2, because there was one before, if you don't forget. Of course, you have Lehman Russ, the Primarch of the Space Wolves. For those people holding their breath for him to come back in 40K, keep holding your breath. It's going to be fun watching all of you pass out, because I don't think it's coming anytime soon.
It's probably not coming. There are hints of it.
I would say,
Well,
if
I mean,
another one
a lot of
was
people
to
talking.
come back, this would be a cool one to have come back.
I would wonder if he'd be like all wolfened out and just raging,
I would
and
hope
big.
not, actually. But I think it would be cool if he
How
was
can
like
you spend
missing a hand or
10,000
something.
like years in the? Well, I guess it's the warp. It could have been like he could
To
have thought
him,
it was like
could have been
an
last
hour.
week. Yeah.
I see them doing it.
Hey,
Hey, he's not dead.
look, never say never.
Who
But I don't
saw Guillermin coming back?
Watch this. You want to see him come back? I'm going to predict it right now. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
Sweet, thanks, Carl.
Yeah, you're all set.
You heard it here
Did
first.
you a favor?
Thanks, buddy.
Because we all know I'm wrong about everything when it comes to predicting stuff. You can still get the Space Wolves Legion transfer sheet, which is amazing.
That is an
transfers.
amazing transfer sheet.
Yeah, Forge World transfers are next level.
And then you get what you were talking about, the Vargar Terminators.
No,
I'm
not
telling
a
you.
big fan of the sculpt. But you know what?
conversion
I
set?
think if I took it, I would have to do a lot of green stuff work.
Yeah,
to
to cover up the sausage fur.
Sausage,
It looks like
banana.
hot link fur.
I don't think it's that
It's
bad,
not that
but
bad. It's pretty bad though. I'm
it
sorry,
is
Carl.
not great. It is not great.
2 out of 3 agree.
And
No,
then,
I'm-
well, I mean, just look at. I mean, look at the.
It's not
the scroll,
as bad
but
as
not
you're
work.
describing it, but it's not that great.
Maybe it's the way it was painted, possibly. But how hard would it be to add some green stuff to that?
People also
And-
don't like that Praetor. Like-
It's very flat. It
Yeah.
looks a lot like a third edition
Yes,
sculpt.
right? It's along one line, one
Yeah.
plane.
What's the unit that has like the leather masks?
Those are
Like
the
the-
Gray Slayers. Those guys are kind of cool, actually. Other than the upside down bolt pistols,
Right.
Are they?
they are.
Or are they?
They are.
Or are they?
I think I thought Forge World was actually redoing them and
Yeah.
gonna send
Yep.
out guys
Yep.
the new ones,
don't know
new
about
fronts.
that. I don't- Anyway. Okay. So we've talked about all that. What is it about this army? And Austin, let's start with you. What is it about this army that you think is fun? Like, what is it about it that separates it from other armies you play, Tao, and makes this much more fun than that army?
Well, I mean,
Why, to answer the question, ultimately, like, why should you collect this army and why should you play it?
they just got so much character. All the individual characters. There's lore, tons of lore out there for them. They're choppy space marines with.
It's
Giant-
polar opposite for you. It's polar opposite
the
of
complete
what
opposite,
you
and
play
that's-
with Tau.
yeah, exactly.
That's an interesting point.
And I like close combat.
But why did you? Okay, so why did you decide to do Space Wolves? Like, why was that the chapter you chose?
It was originally what I started off with.
You had him
Wait,
first, right?
Yes,
Before
I
Tau.
had them first before. I started when I started playing in the 80s. I went with Space Wolves.
Okay.
For
so
Epic.
there's like a history there.
There's a
For
history
Epic.
there.
Okay.
I played Epic Space Wolves.
Okay.
And I had the old Ragnar model in Epic, and I had the doors painted, and then when I went to the military, and I came back, I was like, what am I going to do? I went with orcs.
Oh,
I had
interesting.
I had an old third, fifth edition orcs army, and then when I decided to do Marines again, I was like, well, you know what? I'm going back to Space Wolves. They've been calling me for a while. Yes, with that wolf call. And I decided to go with there, and so almost every edition I've decided to do like a new army. This is actually 8th edition is the first time I haven't switched to new army. I started a completely new army.
Okay.
Dark Eldar have been calling me a little bit, but
So it's the character of this. It's
the history that I've
the
had,
choppiness of it.
yeah, and I just like close combat, and I've always loved close combat.
Okay.
Fair enough.
And then I tampered with Tau a little bit, but a little bit. Okay, yeah, over 10,000 points, but
Jeez.
I came back to came back to my calling.
Okay.
I think it's back to that polar opposite thing, man. Like I've been having so much fun with my Death Guard because they play so differently from my Knife Ears, And for I think for you, like that's clutch to have two armies that are just so different. Personally, Space Wolves for me, I'm like almost full-blooded Estonian, so I have like raiding and Viking genes in me. I listen to a lot of Viking death metal, and I like beer. I like red meat of the bone, and the army just speaks to me at a personal level.
I can see that. For me, first off, I don't care what Jeff says. I love the theme. I know the wolf stuff can get kind of silly.
It
and
is a
maybe over
little
the top,
corny at times.
but I really like the core Viking theme that these come from. And were I to do this, I mean, yes, I would use, the wolf riders and whatnot, but ultimately I would kind of theme it around more of a Viking type theme for me. I love the look of the army, whether it's blue or gray. Actually, I think like yours is blue at this point, but I think it looks freaking great, Austin. I mean, with what we've learned from airbrushes, being able to do various shading and all that, it makes that thing look not flat, even if
I think that's very key to this blue army when you do it like that, is you got to have the transitions and the colors down. Otherwise it does look really flat, and then it just doesn't pop on the table.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you're also dealing with like two colors that are kind of opposite on the color wheel, like a real bright light blue and yellow. Like it's two bright colors, right? So it's all bright. You don't really get that extreme contrast as if you were to go to like a dark gray and yellow. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think you get a bit more contrast going like darker on the grays, but ultimately if it's done right, Austin's army looks beautiful.
I think it can look good either way. Gray is one of those colors I detest painting because it's so close to the plastic sprue that you get the thing on that I'm always like,
I love it because there's so many different shades of it, and you can introduce in blues and purples and
I found browns work.
Browns, you can literally add in any color to change the hue.
Okay, so that said, I as a theme, I really, really like this army. It's a Marine army, as you said, Justin. So if you like Marines, this army could potentially work for you if you want something that's just a little off to the right of Marines. For me, it's honestly one of the things holding, as we were prepping for this, I was seriously I saw a guy on Barter Bucket selling Space Wolf, just the basic Gray Hunter boxes pretty cheap. And I'm like, I should just pick those up, right? And then I'm like,
hold your horses. I think I can take care of you.
Well, no.
You had a bunch of wolves initially, and you sold them, right?
Sold them off. But here was the thing: I was like, as I looked at it, I was like, you know what? I've got a massive Marine army.
Yeah.
Yes, this plays a little different than that, but not different enough that I'm going to invest in yet. And I just sold the Ultramarines because I really don't need a different Marine.
Well, why don't you meet in the middle, man? Because you could absolutely use the rules for Space Wolves with your Minotaurs.
I don't want to. No.
I mean, again, you don't got to have the Thunderwolf
the theme
cav,
doesn't quite work for me for that. I've got some ideas, but my point is much to what you said. Tau are so different than this. I if I'm going to get another army, it's because it's so different.
Sure.
It's so, demons play very different than Space Marines, which play very different than Chaos Space Marines, and so that's why I kind of spread myself out around that.
Yep.
The Tyranids play very different. So, okay, I've got that army too. So for me to buy yet another army that's very similar to the army I'm playing, I can't justify that, especially right now.
I think if you were to do it, you would probably want to embrace the Thunderwolf.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I'd build
that.
Yeah, you just do a very focused force, right?
Right.
And 3 predators.
Well, don't do like me, where I'm when I go in, I'm all in, and I've got basically one of every unit.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I have a Cestus Assault Ram I have never used in a game.
I just sold my Cestus Assault Ram. That was part of my Ultramarines.
We need help.
Sold it to Austin.
It looks so good.
You can't buy it anymore.
Yeah, the mold's broken anymore. The mold's broken.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Oh.
But that thing is so cool though. I did not enjoy building it though.
But there was a time where it was good. So anyway, that's kind of the thing that holds me off from it. But man, if I didn't have the Minotaurs, like I would be if I were picking from if I were picking
Calling
from
you.
the ground up right now, it would be like maybe I should do Space Wolves. Like you said, a guy had gone in full force into 40K and then backed out of it. I don't want to do this, and he sold me this huge Space Wolf army for $400 with the case and everything. I ended up selling it all off, but there's sometimes I regret it, but ultimately I need to stay a little more focused than I have been. So that's what holds me up. But it really does appeal me. Maybe I'll borrow your army sometime. We'll
definitely.
We'll play
no
that,
problem.
like, oh, hey, bring yours over so I can use it. But I mean, it just it speaks to me on that level.
Nice.
So all right,
Fair enough.
okay. Well, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll end the show, and that'll be that. There is one thing that we haven't mentioned that if I don't mention this, we're going to hear about it. Is we've been calling them Space Wolves this whole time.
The Route.
The Route
Velka Fenrica.
or the Volca Fenrica are their true names.
They call themselves the Route.
They call themselves the Route.
Yes.
They're also known as the Volca Fenrica, but us lowly imperial citizens with our Gothic just refer to them as Space Wolves, which you shouldn't call them to their face, apparently.
They're not big fans of that.
No. So we didn't forget.
We did wait till the end, yes.
So I know I have two friends in particular
Big Jim.
I have two friends in particular that I shall not name that get completely annoyed when people refer to themselves like as Space Wolves. So they're like, yes, we are the Volca Fenrica. And they're like, oh, geez, are you serious? So for me, it's like, have fun
Fanboy.
with it. Have fun with it. I don't care what you call yourself. So, all right, we'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, I'm Caleb.
And this is Kat.
And we are CK Studios. We want to invite you and your friends to come paint with us at one of our exciting and fun-filled airbrush and hobby weekenders. Our weekend workshops are 2 days of intense hands-on training, working directly with and learning from some of the top gaming artists in the industry.
Whether you're brand new to miniature painting or an experienced veteran that wants to up your game, CK Studios has the workshop for you. Our workshops cover everything from learning the basics and building confidence in airbrushing, all the way up to creating that centerpiece model for your army or display case.
For more class info and our upcoming schedule, you can find us on Facebook at CK Studios Come Paint With Us, or register directly at ckstudios.bigcartel.com.
If you can't find a class near you, that's okay. Just contact us and we'll bring a workshop to you.
All right, so thank you for joining us for episode 177 of the Independent Characters, and thank you, Austin, for joining us.
Oh no, thanks for having me over here.
Seriously, we couldn't have done this without you, as you are our resident Space Wolf player at the moment. And you have a beautiful army. I'd love if you could put up some pictures of it on the Facebook group.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Stuff, just so
it's been a while since I've taken some nice macro matte photos.
Ooh, shameless.
Nice. He's almost a pro.
Jeez.
That wasn't even planned. That's amazing. Justin, you got anything you want to add before we kind of close it out?
It's one thing like listening to these Show of Force episodes when I'm not on them. When I do have the privilege of being on them, if I feel like it inserts in me even more the need to collect and paint
Which is funny
said
because
army.
You haven't been excited about Space Wolves. Now you're like, maybe I should dust mine off. We should play a team game. Maybe we should do Space. Hang on, I got to paint something up for it.
I know.
Hey, Austin, you got any more of them storm shields?
That's the next thing you're gonna hear.
Shapeways. I'm excited about Wolves again. I mean, I've always been like a very anti-imperial guy. Like I've always been the Chaos Eldar guy. The Space Wolves are kind of like they've always been my in.
They're a little fringe.
They speak to you.
They're a little fringe. They speak to me. Like the reason I went over. I'm excited at the possibility of dusting off the Wolves, and even just because I have like
played a couple times.
I've got like 1,500 points painted, ready to go.
All right.
They're on 25. They're on 25s though, so I wouldn't be able to bring myself to play them on 25s. I have no Thunderwolves, so I have like the very 5th edition drop wolf army. I have Niall, Stormcaller, and Jal, however you pronounce it. Bunch of Grey Hunters. So I'd have to add
long
some.
Fangs.
I think it's
lots of long
yeah.
fangs.
I've got like I think I have 3 packs of Long Fangs because that was back when they were the bee's knees. But I'm excited about Wolves, man. I gotta say. So it's I hate you,
All right.
Carl.
Awesome. What army don't you want next? Okay, so again, if you like what you're hearing, feel free to go leave us a review on iTunes or leave us a review on Facebook.
Yeah.
We do read them all, and
It's great.
and helps other people find the show, that kind of thing. If you haven't joined our Facebook group and you're looking for a super positive, kind of self-moderating community, although occasionally moderators got to step in. One stepped in tonight.
And it's not to say you can't have like a quasi-negative opinion. Just don't be that guy.
You just present it in a constructive way. That's
Right.
all we're asking. But yeah, it's a great group to be in. I think we're up to like 35. I don't
Who
pay
knows?
attention.
It's great.
Anyway, I think that's it. I think we should go ahead and shut down.
Yep.
So based on that, this is Carl.
This is Austin.
And this is Justin.
And we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where you can aroo until your heart's content.
Oh, God.
Where the local Forge World has got the buy one, get one free storm shields.
Ooh. Going on right now?
Right now.
Interesting. And it's better to fight and fall than to live without hope.
Fantastic. So until next time, we will see you when we see you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.